Niggas will say stupid shit like, I ain't oppressed. You know what Harriet Tubman said? She said, I would have freed so many more of my people only if they knew they were slaves. All niggas want is comfortable oppression. Niggas is okay with being oppressed as long as it's comfortable. Master he slapped that nigga 10 times. He only slapped me 9. I'm all right with that. Master, we picked cotton for just 23 hours a day. Now, he didn't make us pick it sun up to sun up again, 24 hours. Niggas just want comfortable oppression. And niggas, and the system understands that we'll feed these niggas hope. We'll feed them false hope. We'll give them 1 or 2 niggas to idolize, to put up on a pedestal, to chase. And it's achievable, but it's not achievable. The system isn't meant for everybody to win. Because if it was, everybody would be winning. See, niggas will say stupid shit like, I ain't oppressed. You know what?
Welcome to the JamesBFauntleroy channel. I am your host, JamesBFauntleroy. Good to see all of you here on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Just to let you guys know, the JamesBFauntleroy channel is also part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. So guys can find me there typically on Tuesdays for the Sabby and JB show, and then regularly on Sundays for the JB show. So good to see all of you joining me again today. I think it's my first official regular show back from the hospital. But who's counting? But while we're at it, if you guys have not already, go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you so very much. This also helps us out with being able to reach more people and activate and really just let people know that the system that they are in, a lot of their troubles are not their own individual faults, but it's because of a system that is designed to fail them. And now what do we do to go forward so that we can actually rebuild a system together? And so liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing the links, things like that, this helps with being able to reach more people. Unfortunately, channels like this are throttled because channels like mine are actually competing with corporate outlets. And a lot of times these corporate outlets always have a corporate or oligarchic slant to them because who owns them? Like who was said during the 2024 election, who funds you, runs you? Well, go to my Patreon and see who funds me. Now, with that being said, if you guys have not already, you guys can go to my Substack at jbfaunt.substack.com so you guys can get email notifications whenever I go live or upload clips or whenever I write any articles. So thank you very much for that. And if you guys have any questions that you would like to ask me and then I give a video response or I react to a video that you would like for me to look at, then you can do it through QBounty at qbounty.com/JBFaunt as well. So I got my tea ready, and I wanted to play that video in particular at first because this doesn't just apply to Black people, okay? There are a lot of people that are comfortable with their oppression, that are white, straight, and cisgender. They're comfortable with their oppression too. Because they feel like they may have a little bit of an edge. They may feel like they have a little bit of power, right? And so they feel like, oh, well, things are going my way. But things are only going your way symbolically. You see, when it comes to actual material conditions that you are fighting for, that you want, they're not going to happen for you. That's because many people in 2024 listened to swindlers, to hustlers, to people that put a ruse in front of them to make them think that some real change substantively was going to happen in their lives. But in reality, nothing at all. It was just words, right? Snake oil salesmen. And you had them in red suits and blue suits that were trying to sell it to you. And so now you have a whole bunch of people that are going, yay, right? And they're cheering for that tree limb to come down. They're like a squirrel on a tree limb, and they're looking at a smaller, more vulnerable squirrel and going, see, you're the reason why this tree is just terrible. And then you got these guys behind the squirrel next to a tree trunk sawing off the tree limb. But who's also standing on that limb? You. Because they got you focused on the wrong side. They got you focused on the ones that don't have any power. You need to focus on the ones that are trying to cut off that tree limb. You need to turn around. The call's coming from inside the house. With that being said, we're going to get into this. We're going to talk to our family within the comments, and then we're going to be getting into these 3 segments that I have for you today. It's going to be an interesting one. There's a lot to talk about today, so let's get into it. We have H. Lil Kill coming in saying, hello all. Good to see you, H. DJ Leader coming in saying, hope you're feeling better, my brother. Positive energy and love. Positive energy and love to you. Mwah. Peace and love to all of y'all. All right. And I mean it. Social emotional learning with Dr. Donnie, says JB. And Dr. Donnie continues, says, I think I'm going to listen to this and walk home and make some tacos for lunch. Look, if you do have tacos, please just eat a piece from me. Just eat a piece from me. That's all I ask. It's Taco Tuesday. All right, let's go on to T. Says, missed you, JB. No, thank you so very much, Kat. It's so good to see you. Thank you so very much as well. Jace Hart says, hi, JB. Who was that guy? I do not know, but I was more focused on what he was saying. And that is what really resonated with me. But that's actually a really good question. I need to find out who that was. But let's get into it, all right? Let's continue this conversation. And I appreciate, and if you can find out who it was, then please let me know. But yeah, it's great. Hey, JB and everyone else, back in a bit. All right, Jacqueline, good to see you. Terry Hinton coming in saying, hello, JB in chat. Terry coming in hot. Good to see you. My brother from another mother, Roger Meadow, says, damn, you came on strong. JB back with a vengeance. Only people who realize their own mortality speak like this. What the hell happened in that hospital they had you in, bro? Nigga. I'm just saying. Look, here's the beauty about being over 40. Yes, I am over 40. I moisturize. And if I shave all this off, you guys would be like, anyway. Being over 40 means that you have less fucks to give. You're not down with the foolishness. I'm a grown-ass man on grown-ass time with grown-ass responsibilities and grown-ass purpose. And I don't have time to spend on Twitter drama or inter-left drama. I don't have time for that. This is something that me and Sabby, we talk on the phone often, and this is one of the things that we actually talk about. And I hope she doesn't mind that I say this, but I think it's important. She asked the question, we both asked the question, what matters more? Does the mission matter more, or does the money matter more? People like Sabby and I, and those of us at RBN, we look at the mission. Well, money comes and goes. That's the way the capitalist system works. And we realize that. But it's not going to do us any bit of good unless we actually fight for that liberation. So the mission takes ultimate importance. We're throttled because we care about the mission. Now, I encourage all of you, there was a clip that Sabby released where she talked to Toraine Walker, Jamal Thomas, and don't tell me. I can't believe I'm actually blanking on his brother's name. Bad JB. Garland Nixon. And one of the things that was stated was that you have some channels, I'm not going to say who, that are more focused on the money than they are the mission. And so it's just like what Freddie Mercury said in Bohemian Rhapsody, any way the wind blows doesn't really matter to me. And that's the thing, right? Is that they will follow the clicks and views wherever it goes, depending on the situation. And you will find these people out fairly quickly if you look at the contradictions between what they said yesterday and what they say today. And so the foolishness is some channels will thrive on your outrage, especially on the left, in order for you to pay for their Patreon. They will depend on you being outraged at what the Democrats are doing. Some of them will talk about what the Democrats are doing, but then they'll go heavy on what the Republicans are doing. Oh my God, can you believe these guys? But then when it comes time for you to walk away from both parties, guess what? They're pushing you back in that direction. So it makes you question, does the mission matter more, or does the money matter more? Where does their integrity lie? Integrity is a very expensive commodity, and you have to be very choosy in how you spend it. Some of these motherfuckers are broke. And that's all I'm going to say. So, thank you very much for that, Roger. All right, let's go in. All right. No, you're not going to be blocked as a troll. Look, it's okay. I don't like pineapple on pizza. It's all good. No, you're too sweet to block. I don't know how to pronounce this name. I think that's in Japanese, but it says, society treats you differently when you have gray. That's also true. Which is why I never picked up a box of Just for Men. Society also treats you differently depending on your race, too. And your gender, depending on what you're an expert in their eyes. I remember back when I was working at a furniture store, and I tried my best to get customers to listen to me. But because I wasn't a middle-aged white woman, when it came to decor, they would not listen to me. But the middle-aged white woman with the gray hair or the gray streak, they were listening to her. Because in their mind, she was more of an expert. She knew more. They thought I was just doing a job, even though I knew quite a bit about decor and how to, fashion a room. But they looked at the outward appearance. It's sad, but that's the way it goes. Edward says, Trump talks so much about free speech, but when he took Marion Adelson AIPAC money, then free speech went out the window. He was never for free speech, though. All right. So I'm trying to regulate and see how things are going on Rockfin. I got to get in touch with them. But for now, I'm not on Rockfin right now. So I am sorry, but I will keep looking into that. But what are we going to be talking about today? We got 3 stories that we're going to get into. And let's look at the thumbnail just to go over what we're going to be doing. All right. So later in the show, we're going to be talking about mental health crisis. You see me there because I am very concerned about the mental health crisis and how it intersects with class. We're going to talk about this because I think it's a very important topic to cover, because a lot of times we fail to talk about mental health as much as we should, especially within the realm of being an anti-capitalist. So we're going to talk about that. During the middle of the show, we're going to be talking about Doge targets Social Security. So Elon Musk has his sights on our Social Security. We're going to talk about the operations of Social Security and what this could mean if Doge actually starts doing what they want with it without any real checks and balances. But first, we're actually going to be covering one of the breaking stories that many people on the left, and especially in independent media, are covering now. Free speech stopped. So we're going to be talking about Mahmoud Khalil, and that's going to be our first story of the day. So there was a gentleman by the name of Mahmoud Khalil that has been detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE. Mahmoud Khalil is, but for all intents and purposes, a student, and that's it. And yet he's being treated like a terrorist. Why is he being treated like a terrorist? Well, let's get into the story first, dissect that. There's been more further developments since then, since the story broke out, regarding what the Trump administration is trying to do to Mahmoud, and also the subsequent pushback from the public about what's going on with Mahmoud. So let's get into this. Let me share the screen. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's get into this. So actually, you know what? That was my second article. I'm sorry. Let me go to the first article that I want to share. That's the other one. Okay. All right. So the first article is Immigration Agents Arrest Palestinian Activists Who Helped Lead Columbia University Protests. So this is Mahmoud Khalil. Right? Let's get into it. Okay. So it says federal immigration authorities arrested a Palestinian activist Saturday who played a prominent role at Columbia University's protest against Israel, a significant escalation in the Trump administration's pledge to detain and deport student activists. Muhammad Khalil, a graduate at Columbia until his this past December, was inside his university-owned apartment Saturday night when several immigration and customs enforcement agents entered and took him into custody. That was per his attorney, Amy Greer. She spoke by phone with one of the ICE agents during the arrest, who said that they were acting on State Department orders to revoke Khalil's student visa. Informed by the attorney that Khalil was in the United States as a permanent resident with a green card, they said that they were revoking that instead. Spokesperson for Homeland Security, Trista McLaughlin, confirmed that Khalil's arrest is in a statement on Sunday, describing it as being in support of President Trump's executive orders prohibiting anti-Semitism. First of all, we're going to stop here, because there's a lot of people who are still getting confused about the difference between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. So I'm going to explain it to you right now. If I am anti-white supremacy, does that mean I'm anti-American? I mean, there could be an argument for that. But for the most part, no. Because I am anti-white supremacy. White supremacy is really a socio-political ideology. I don't have problems with necessarily the citizens or people of America. I have a problem with the institution that brought about the slaughter of, millions of Native Americans, and then kidnapped, stole, and put in chains millions and millions upon Africans into chattel slavery. And then the subsequent persecution that has continued down to this day. But does that make me anti-American? No. Just like I could be anti-white supremacist, but not be anti-American. You can be anti-Zionist, but not anti-Semitic. See, the thing is that Zionism is a political ideology that is tied to a settler colonial project that steals land from an indigenous people in order to take it over. And some come under the guise that it was God that told them to do it, when in reality, it was really just a robber baron who did. It was people who said that we just want to move away. It was the British government that was actually anti-Semitic, that wanted to send Jewish people away because they didn't want to actually deal with their own bigotry within their own borders. So it is a political ideology. It has nothing to do with religion or ethnicity. Anti-Semitism, in its truest sense, is hatred or an aversion to a Semitic people. Who are Semitic people? People who speak Arabic, Aramaic, Hebrew, languages like that. Well, Hebrew, yeah, you got Israelis. But you got Arabic, which Arabs typically speak. So therefore, Arabs are also Semites. So advocating for the freedom of Palestinians who are Arabs is actually pro-Semitic. But according to their definition, it's anti-Semitism. That doesn't make any sense. That's like hypothetically speaking, let's say a bunch of Colombians decide to take over land in Brazil, and then the Brazilians fight back, and then you side with the Brazilians, but then they call you anti-Latino. But Portuguese and Spanish are both Latin languages, which means both Brazilians and Colombians are Latino. So it doesn't make sense to say I'm anti-Latino if I'm actually speaking and advocating for the freedom of Brazilians, because you may have some Colombians that are trying to take over that piece of land. See how it makes sense now? It's an oxymoron. But the governments that we are under are fiendishly moronic by their very nature, because they're beholden to not the goals of preserving the lives of Jewish people, but it's about preserving a military base in the middle of West Asia in order to keep in check other nations, because they don't want them to start nationalizing their resources and moving into a more worker-centric direction, because they want those resources for the corporations here on this land. That's ultimately what it's about. Judaism is a religion primarily. And so therefore, Zionism and Judaism are not congruent. So much so that even Orthodox Jews condemn the state of Israel. And many Jewish people who are not Orthodox condemn the state of Israel. I've had them on this channel before. Because the state of Israel is actually committing genocide on a mass scale, upwards of over 180,000 people that was reported by the Lancet, in order to clear out the land so that they can have it for themselves. And this is the part that is horrific, because as many of my Jewish friends and comrades that have told me, when they said never again, they meant it. But Zionists don't. And also, not all Zionists are Jewish, and not all Jewish people are Zionists. I can list Zionists who are not Jewish right now. Donald Trump is a Zionist. Joe Biden's a Zionist. Barack Obama's a Zionist. Kamala Harris is a Zionist. Nancy Pelosi's a Zionist. Hakeem Jeffries is a Zionist. Richie Torres is a Zionist. None of them are Jewish. Most Zionists are actually Christian. So with that being said, for somebody to speak out against what a state is doing against an indigenous people, is that right? Make sure to please take the poll, by the way. This is something that we have to talk about. All right. I just wanted to go over that because I needed to clear that out, about anti-Semitism. And I had to do it in a nuanced way because some people will try to say, oh, you're oversimplifying it, JB. But no. Khalil's arrest is the first publicly known deportation effort under Trump's promised crackdown on students who joined protests against the war in Gaza that swept college campuses last spring. The administration has claimed participants forfeited their rights to remain in the country by supporting Hamas. McLaughlin signaled the arrest was directly connected to Khalil's role in the protest, alleging he, quote, led activities aligned to Hamas, a designated terrorist organization. As ICE agents arrived to Khalil's Manhattan residence Saturday night, they also threatened to arrest Khalil's wife, an American citizen who was 8 months pregnant. So here you have them threatening to arrest a pregnant woman who is an American citizen. Well, that's awkward. That's weird. Why would ICE agents arrest an American citizen that's pregnant? Shall we continue? Khalil's attorney said they were initially informed that he was being held at the immigration detention facility in Elizabeth, New Jersey. But when his wife tried to visit Sunday, she learned that he was not there. Greer says she's still, meaning they took this dude away and they basically disappeared him. They disappeared this man. This is mafia type stuff. You're gonna spit out your tea once you find out where he ended up. Let's continue. It says, we have not been able to get any more details about why he's being detained. This is a clear escalation. The administration is following through on its threats. A Columbia University spokesperson said law enforcement agents must provide a warrant before entering university property, but declined to say if the school had received one ahead of Khalil's arrest. The spokesperson declined to comment on Khalil's detention, meaning that they might have just violated the law in order to deport somebody for just speaking out against an apartheid regime. Oh, but in America, we never do that. If you're saying that, if you're saying this is not who we are, then you have failed to study history in its true, accurate, grotesque nature that it actually exists in. This is who the United States is. Remember the Chinese Exclusion Act? Remember the Japanese internment camps? Remember Jim Crow? It is exactly who the United States is. Let's continue. And a message here on Twitter. I'm still calling it Twitter. I don't care. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the administration will be revoking the visas and or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so they can be deported. The Department of Homeland Security can initiate deportation proceedings against green card holders for a broad range of alleged criminal activity, including supporting a terror group. But the detention of a legal permanent resident who has not been charged with a crime marked an extraordinary move with an uncertain legal foundation, according to immigration experts. This says the appearance of retaliatory action against someone who expressed an opinion of Trump the administration didn't like. That was from Camille Mackler. Khalil, who received his master's degree from the Columbia School of International Affairs last summer, serves as a negotiator for the students as they bargained with university officials over an end to the tent encampment erected on campus last spring. The role made him one of the most visible activists in support of the movement, prompting calls from pro-Israel activists in recent weeks for the Trump administration to begin deportation proceedings against him. Khalil was also among those under investigation by a new Columbia University office that's brought disciplinary charges against dozens of students for their pro-Palestinian activism, according to the records shared with the AP. The investigations come as the Trump administration has followed through on its threat to cut hundreds of millions of dollars of funding to Columbia because of what the government describes as Ivy League schools' failure to squelch anti-Semitism on campus. The university's allegations against Khalil focus on his involvement at the Columbia Apartheid Divest Group. He faced sanctions for potentially helping to organize an unauthorized marching event in which participants glorified Hamas on October 7, 2023 attack, and playing a substantial role in the circulation of social media posts criticizing Zionism, among other acts of alleged discrimination. Now, he's facing sanctions because he decided to help organize a protest. I'm going to quote a comrade of mine saying, if you need to get a permit for a protest, then it's not a protest, it's a parade. It's a protest. Also, that falls under free speech, which is due to us through the Constitution of the United States. And he is a permanent resident of the United States. So therefore, free speech also applies to him. And yet, if he criticizes the government, guess what? Oh, well, he gets deported. I wonder would they do the same thing to people who support the KKK or the Proud Boys or the 3%ers? Where is this deportation? Can we deport them back to Germany or Czechoslovakia or Poland? Or can we deport them to Norway, to England? Can we deport them? Can we deport them to Spain or Portugal? Can we deport those terrorist groups? Oh, you don't want to? You're cool with the far right, white supremacist terrorist groups that have had a history of terrorizing us. You're cool with that. But the moment somebody criticizes Israel, just rhetorically, you're shaking in your boots. This country is cool. I'm telling you, I don't know what to tell you. This country is COOKED. Cooked. All right. I have around 13 allegations against me. Most of them are social media posts that had nothing to do with that. Was from Mahmoud Khalil. They just want to show Congress and right-wing personalities that they're doing something regardless for the stakes of the students. It's mainly an office to chill pro-Palestine speech. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people have to realize the cruelty is the point. The cruelty is the deterrent so that you shut the F up. That's what it is. The cruelty. So that you look at somebody like Mahmoud Khalil and go, oh, I can't speak out. Because if I speak out, then I'll end up like him. This is how they quelch an uprising against injustice. They will make an example out of one. Excuse me. One thing should be made abundantly clear. Khalil did nothing wrong. He used his free speech. Let's get into the later developments of what happened. Okay. Let's get into this. It says Trump warns that arrest of Palestinian activists at Columbia will be first of many. So here's something that I wanted to focus on. Mahmoud Khalil, lawful U.S. resident who was a graduate at Columbia in December, was detained Saturday by federal immigration agents in New York and flown to immigration jail in Louisiana. Louisiana. He's all the way up in New York at Columbia. They said they'll be transferring him to a facility in Elizabeth, New Jersey, which isn't that far. It may be 45 minutes to an hour away, right? But no. They were like, nah, we're sending him all the way to Louisiana. For speaking out against Israel? It develops even further. It's crazy. This is crazy, folks. This is crazy, folks. Let me get into this. We know there are more students at Columbia and other universities across the country who have engaged in pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity, Trump wrote on a social media post. We will find, apprehend, and deport these terrorist sympathizers from our country, never to return again. It's kind of funny how they call these groups terrorists, yet the state of Israel was the one that has killed hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. On October 7th, it was about 1,200 people that were killed by Palestinian resistance. Most people who are conscripted into military service. But men, women, children, the disabled, LGBTQ, and everybody in between were murdered, killed, maimed, and destroyed over the last 18 months. And nobody talks about the terrorism that was conducted by Israel. Netanyahu can fly to the United States, walk into our Capitol building, and receive thunderous applause from our members of elected officials, and nobody is putting handcuffs on him and putting him in the pen? But you guys want to deport a guy for talking about how he doesn't think that his people should be genocide? What's down is up and what's up is down. What's right is wrong, what's wrong is right. What's sweet is bitter, what's bitter is sweet. This entire country is cattywampus. And the world is looking at this country like, oh my God, the United States is just one gigantic contradiction. Well, yes, it is. Because they talk about freedom and democracy, but when it comes time to actually give freedom and democracy, you don't want to give it because then that threatens the power of the people who don't want you to have freedom and democracy, which are the people at the top. Y'all wonder why I'm a communist. Let's continue. It says, but a federal judge in New York City ordered on Monday, which was yesterday, that Khalil not be deported while the court considered a legal challenge brought by his lawyers. A hearing was scheduled for tomorrow, Wednesday. It says Khalil's detention drew outrage from civil rights groups and free speech advocates like myself, who accused the administration of using its immigration enforcement powers to squelch criticism of Israel. This is absolutely true. This is because they do not want any criticism of their military base in Western Asia. That's all it is. They don't want people to question its legitimacy and why it's there. And you guys probably keep going, well, why do you keep calling it a military base? There's forced conscription there. First of all. So if you go there, well, you have to join the military if you're of military age. Number one. Number two, it's a nuclear power. And they're so tied at the hip to the United States. Mossad is CIA and CIA is Mossad. The Knesset is basically our House and Senate. It's just a separate division in Western Asia. And their interests are really for the interests of corporations. It is not for the interest of Jewish people. They don't give a damn about Jewish people. Israel is an anti-Semitic state because they put Jewish people's lives in danger via settler colonialism, and they put Palestinians' lives in danger and destroy them if they resist. So if you really want to talk about anti-Semitism, the call is coming from inside the house, but they don't want to hear that. Let's continue. He is the first person known to be detained for deportation under Trump promised crackdown on student protests. Federal immigration authorities also visited a second international student at Columbia on Friday evening and attempted to take her into custody, but were not allowed to enter the apartment, according to a union representing the students. So there's the protest right there. It says Khalil had not been charged with any crime related to his activism, but Trump has argued that protesters forfeited their rights to remain in the country by protests he claimed support Hamas, the Palestinian group that attacked Israel on October 7th of 2023. The U.S. has designated Hamas as a terrorist organization. I want to focus on this. It says the U.S. has designated Hamas as a terrorist organization. Why is this important? Did you know that Nelson Mandela was on the terrorist watch list up until 2008? Nelson Mandela. And what did they do? Not much different than Hamas, not much different than the Palestinian resistance. They were resisting apartheid. They were resisting colonization. They were resisting settler colonialism. And yet, now everybody's free to revere and praise Nelson Mandela, even though he was considered a terrorist before 2008. Because it threatened the power of the people at the top. The ANC threatened the power of the people at the top. And so anybody that threatens power in that way is seen as dangerous. This guy is being considered a terrorist for wanting Palestine to be free, and yet you still got people like Dylan Roof that's not on the terrorist watch list. Even though, yeah, he's in custody because he shot a whole bunch of people in a church, black people in a church. He should have also been designated as a terrorist just by his actions. What are we doing with the Grand Wizards of the KKK? Are they on any terrorist watch list, or have they been taken off the terrorist watch list? Anytime you have a group that challenges the power of the United States, they are seen as a threat. I'm going to say it like this. We are a threat only in the sense that power does not like to democratize, to have it doesn't, the powers that be do not want to see a democratization of the power that they wield amongst all the people. They want to see it centered into the hands of a few. Let me share this just to prove my point. This is a Time magazine article. It says the U.S. government had Nelson Mandela on a terrorist watch list until 2008. Here's why. I'm not going to read the entire article, but I think it's important to read this, right? Okay. Says, yet throughout his life, Mandela had a habit of saying that he was not a saint, as Time noted in 2013 obituary. Perhaps more surprisingly, from today's perspective, many people around the world felt the same way. In fact, Mandela remained on the U.S. terrorist watch list until 2008. Understanding the reasons behind the fact that requires seeing Mandela's life and work in context of both the history of the African National Congress, the ANC, the political party in which Mandela was associated, and the history of the United States attitudes during the Cold War. It's on the ANC side, the deciding factor was a shift in strategy that led some activists to see violence as a possible means to an end. The end being the end of South Africa's official government policy of the separation of blacks and whites. Since its founding in 1912, the ANC fought against apartheid for decades through rigorously nonviolent means, mostly labor strikes and public service boycotts. But the ANC's policy of nonviolence received a sudden and brutal setback in 1960. Here's the thing that I want you guys to realize, right? This can also be applied to Palestine, because they too have went through rigorous nonviolent means, fought against apartheid through nonviolent means, labor strikes, and public service boycotts. They have been doing the March of Return, and what did the Israeli side do? They shot at them. They were unarmed. They shot at them like it was a game. They maimed and killed people who were just coming to the fence to plead with them, to let them move back into their homes. When all other non-violent avenues are exhausted, what is left? The apartheid government of South Africa left them no choice. But people are going to say, oh, violence isn't the answer. Well, you know what? The United States didn't think so, because back in 1776, they definitely thought violence was the answer. Violence was the answer in 1619, between 1619 and until now, when it came to clearing out the land away from the Native Americans. When it comes to countries that actually exercise their sovereignty and their self-determination, and they actually want to nationalize their industries, like what happened in Chile, the United States saw that violence was the answer in order to overthrow and take out Salvador Allende and replace him with Ernesto Pinochet. I forget his first name. It doesn't even really matter anyway, because he's a fascist dictator. What about what they did with Sankara or Nkrumah? They always saw violence as the answer. 600 attempts on Fidel Castro's life because they thought that violence was the answer. They bash our heads in, even for just questioning the state. So the problem is that we went through nonviolent means. And there's a good question that was asked because there was a question and answer between Kwame Ture and some students at a college. And one student strolls up. I should play it, but for the sake of time. One student strolls up and says, well, I think violence is barbaric and stupid. And he, it's like, he basically, I just wanted to make a statement. And then he shrugs and tries to think, oh yeah, I cleaned up Kwame Ture. I'm gonna walk off. Kwame Ture goes, come back here. And then he started asking questions like, what do you think about capitalism? The guy's like, I didn't say anything about it. And then he goes, let me ask you this. If you're a slave and I'm your master, and the only way to get your freedom is to strike the blow to me and kill me, what would you do? That student dropped his head, picked it back up, waved, and walked off because he knew Kwame was right. I'm not advocating for violence, but what I'm saying is that I understand the resolve that the ANC had to take in order to resist being locked out of their own land. I understand what the Native Americans had to do against these European settlers that were trying to lock them out of their own land. I understand what Nat Turner was trying to do. And so here's the thing. When you leave them no resolve, when you leave no space for people to actually gain liberation through peaceful means, then there's going to be the other guy. You're going to get Luigi because they feel like there's no other way out. What do cats do, or what do some animals do when they feel threatened? First, they raise their backs. They may make a noise. They may growl. That's the warning. That's the non-violent warning to say, no, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go the other way. And y'all been going after us with our backs raised, with our hair standing on end, with us growling. And guess what? Somebody is going to swipe their claws. Somebody is going to bite. Because you're leaving them no choice. And all Mahmoud did was just speak out and say, Palestine should be free. And apparently that's a bridge too far. So yeah, they had him on a terrorist watch list. They had Nelson Mandela, right? Let me share some more. I really appreciate this tweet from Nick because my brother be on it. Let me share this with y'all. Because everybody who's coming in here saying, well, that's the Republicans, but the Democrats would never do that. Oh, my sweet summer child. Let's take a look. All right. Okay. Nick says, never forget that Joe Biden's fascism directly led to everything that Donald Trump is about to do. And he shares a screenshot of a headline. What does the headline say, y'all? It says, Biden administration says it can revoke visas of Hamas supporters as Republicans urge action. The blurb says Senator Marco Rubio has requested answers from the State Department. This was back in November 17th of 2023. You see, Joe Biden and the Democrats, they just be feeding ideas to the Republicans for them to conduct their fascism more on an outward fashion. I'm telling you right now, this is why we talk about leaving the duopoly, because the duopoly, it serves you no good. It serves you ill. Thank you very much for that, Nick. I really appreciate that. You hit the nail on the head, brother. And then he says this. Just when I thought my brother couldn't hit the nail on the head anymore, he jackhammered it. He said, there's a reason why Democrats are completely silent about Trump deporting students critical of Israel. He essentially stole their idea. Kamala Harris was 100% about to do the same thing. It's a big club and you ain't in it, baby. And that's the problem. The thing is like, that club is on lockdown. Now, there has been some outrage from Democrats. And I do want to say that, does this go far enough? Absolutely not. And to be honest with you, I think the time for writing letters is over. I think the time for more direct action, on the part of Congress is actually warranted. But let's take a look. This is from Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. Says, I'm joining 13 of my colleagues to demand that the Trump administration immediately releases Muhammad Khalil. Their illegal actions set a dangerous precedent. We cannot allow them to shred our constitutional rights to free speech and due process. Free Muhammad Khalil. Let's look at the signatories, shall we? So you have Rashida Tlaib, Mark Pocan. Hang on, let me enlarge this just a little bit. You have Nadia Velasquez, Delia Ramirez, Ilhan Omar, Jasmine Crockett, Summer Lee, Ayanna Presley. And then we have Latifah Simon, Al Green, Gwen Moore, Andre Carson, Nikema Williams, and James P. McGovern. But there's a name missing. There's a name missing. Alexandria, where you at? Holla. No AOC. Also, by the way, my congressperson, Maxwell Alejandro Frost, where's your name at? What's your name at, bro? Are you going to forget about Mahmoud just like you forgot about the Florida Palestine network that tried to get you to appeal to your better angels to actually advocate for at least an arms embargo and stop this genocide that's going on? Oh, but no, just like them, you turn your back on the Palestinians when it was politically convenient for you, young man. And so now when you have a chance to redeem yourself, you actually don't even do the bare minimum. Maxwell Frost is AOC in drag. He's just going along to get along. See, he wants to keep that $170,000 a year salary. And by the time he gets to 5 years, he gets to keep that pension for the rest of his life. He's trying to be set up. Remember when I talked about the mission versus the money? Well, the money matters more than the mission. The money matters more than the mission than 535 people on Capitol Hill. The money matters more than the mission than the people in the Supreme Court. The money matters more than the mission with the people in the executive branch. True story. Because to them, they have to keep the system in place because they're comfortable. I honestly don't even want to give Rashida Tlaib credit for this because a letter? That's what you're going to do? Strongly worded letter? And even then, AOC and Maxwell Frost couldn't even be bothered to sign it. Wait, was Pramila Jayapal's name in there? Hang on. Because I don't remember seeing Pramila Jayapal's name. Did I miss? No, Nadia, Ilhan, Jasmine, Summer Lee, Ayanna Presley, Latifah, Al Green, Gwen Moore, Andre Carson, Nakima, James P. McGovern. No. Oh my stars and stripes. No, Pramila Jayapal. No, Ro Khanna. See? This is why we walked away from the word progressive, because progressive getting co-opted. I'm also walking away from the word leftist because even that has been co-opted by the Democrats. Under no certain terms are they actually united with us. What's the word? Rotating villain. You also have rotating heroes. These are the rotating heroes to make people think, oh my God, the Democrats are doing they're doing something good for once. You got 13 of them. How many Democrats do you have in Congress? And you mean to tell me that you can only get 13 signatories? 13? That's it? Let that be your 13 reasons why you should leave the Democratic Party. I'm telling you, man, I'm done. Because, you have a gentleman, you have free speech on the line, and they just write a strongly worded letter. Let's play with what this gentleman said, Mahmoud Khalil, first, and then let's get into some words from my sister as well, because she got some strong words too, and I want to show it. But it says Columbia protesters' tent encampment won't end until our university listens to our demands. Okay, let's go.
Are you guys going to listen to the university and leave the encampment here? Of course not. The university is the one who should listen to us. They should listen to their student body who are demanding to end their investment in the war that's happening in Palestine. Our demands are clear. Our demands are regarding the investment from the Israeli occupation, the companies that are profiting and contributing to the genocide of our people. Again, the university, once again, they are so stubborn in listening to their students. They're treating this matter as a disciplinary matter. They're not treating this as an anti-war movement that actually gathered thousands of students here. That actually sparked thousands of students across the United States. How far are you all willing to go here on campus? We're going to go as far as we need to pressure the university to pressure the university to divest from the occupation. This is up to the group, to the leadership of the group, to decide how far they will go. But now it's clear that the students will remain here. They will stay here until they achieve their demands.
So basically, that was what he said. Let me ask you this. And what he said, how does that deem, is there anyone under physical threat? Is there anyone in direct threat of their lives or safety or health by what he just said? Who within the United States is in danger of him saying those words and then it triggering something horribly happening to somebody? Do sudden daggers come, that just suddenly appear out of thin air whenever he speaks and does harm to people? Is he inciting anything that would harm the health and safety of American citizens? If your answer to all those are no, then why are we trying to deport him? Or just expressing an opinion and fighting against an apartheid state? And for anybody who is first hearing the words apartheid, the root word is apart. Apartheid basically meaning separate but unequal statuses of two different people, which is basically an outside of the United States version of Jim Crow. And Jim Crow was horrible, especially for my people. He's advocating for peace. So advocating for peace lands you deportation in the United States. Advocating for liberation gets you deportation, allegedly, according to the Trump administration and according to the Biden administration. Let me share what Savvy said, because I also want to get into this. I know this segment's going a little long, but this is really important. Savvy said there is nothing wrong with this statement here. You're reaching to protect the genocidal state. This is a direct violation of free speech. It is pathetic that you're willing to sink this low. And so this is the problem, is that they're so snowflakish. It's like if you speak against what Israel's doing, it's like you're saying something about their mama. And even then, that's free speech. You know, it makes me wonder about the people who have criticized what America is doing. And if your free speech rights are taken away because of you criticizing America, you got to lock people up on the left and the right. You got to lock up everybody, because everybody and their mama has spoke out against America and its policies. Nobody's exempt. Sharing this from Glenn Greenwald. Oop, sorry. And I'll share the mass protests. Says the mass deportations of MAGA was promised, haven't been happening, so they're flamboyantly deporting legal green card holders instead for the supreme crime of activism against Israel. We heard about murderers, child rapists, cat and dog eaters, the worst who ICE got today. So instead of actually going after people who they said were the actual criminals, they went after somebody that's advocating for peace and liberation for Palestine. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. And so this is the contradictions of the Trump administration. It is just as stark as the contradictions of the Biden administration. And they're even lying on corporate media to make it sound like this guy is some paid operative. Well, you mean like somebody who's paid by IPAC? Oh, Lord. Let's get into it.
He came here on a student visa. He's paid by a terrorist organization that beheads babies.
What evidence do you have
That
of any of
beheads
that?
babies.
First of all, he said beheaded babies. Number one, that has been debunked by many journalists and news outlets. So there was no evidence of babies being beheaded. So let's get that out of the way. If you still believe that story, you are as gullible as, oh my gosh. Poor thing. But that, we got to nip that in the bud. Let's continue.
I have evidence.
So I'm sorry, just to be clear, you're alleging that he's paid by
He's a paid protester.
By who?
Well, I didn't ask my intelligence division exactly who paid for him, but he's being paid by. He's being paid.
That's a pretty explosive allegation. Who is he being paid by?
Can I ask you a question?
No,
you're not answering the question. Somebody get Paw. Somebody get Paw and just tell him this to just. Oh my God. What in the world? Now you're alleging somebody paid him? So he's being paid to care about the liberation of a people that's being genocided?
Said you had evidence. Who is he being paid by?
He's being paid by organizations that are anti-American, that are engaged in nefarious activities. I don't ask my intelligence division to give me.
Don't come on national TV and say on things. Don't come on national TV.
Do you know who he's being paid by?
I don't, and I'm not alleging that he's being paid.
Are you okay with what he's doing?
I'm not alleging he's being paid by because I don't know.
And that is right-winger Anna Navarro challenging him. You know you lost the plot when you get challenged by Anna Navarro, and Anna Navarro actually has a point. Lord. You get challenged by Anna Navarro. Who is this guy? ¿Qué tu problema? They just throw out anything to see if it sticks. Meanwhile, how many U.S. politicians right now that are being funded by AIPAC and J Street on behalf of a foreign state within our borders, from a foreign nation that should be registered as a foreign agent but is not? Pot called kettle black. That's the chamber pot calling the toilet white. Sit down, sir, because you have absolutely no reason to say anything like that other than you're just trying to stoke fear and to make it seem like, well, he's being paid. It looks like to me he's not being paid. He's actually motivated by compassion, and he's being motivated by love for his people because he doesn't want to see them get slaughtered. Because that's what we activists do. We're motivated by justice and compassion. It ain't got nothing to do with money. But I wonder what his motivations are. What feeds his motivations? There's a reason why he's on CNN right now. All right. I went on this long enough. Let me see. I think I got one more thing I want to share as well. I didn't mean for this to be this long of a segment, but these guys are just the worst. Here's a hotspot video where Sagar and Jetty actually is now part of the press pool because the Trump administration opened it up to independent media, which allows people like Sagar to go in, but I haven't seen anybody from the left, you know what I mean, in there, because they wouldn't dare have somebody like one of us, right? I would love to see somebody like, Sabby or Nick go in there and challenge them. Hell, give me Max Blumenthal, or give me Anya Perrenpill in there, or Whitney Webb to challenge it. Anywho, let's listen.
Rubio reserves the right to revoke the visa of Mahmoud Khalil. And I'm glad you brought this up. Under the Immigration and Nationality Act, the Secretary of State has the right to revoke a green card or a visa for individuals who serve or are adversarial to the foreign policy and national security interests of the United States.
Wrong. It's suspected of a crime. Is under suspect of a crime, and he has not been suspected of a crime. He has not committed a crime, so therefore he should not be detained. But of course, they don't care about that because they're snowflakes, because they can't take criticism of a state. Oh my God, they criticized this state, so we got to deport them. You know how there are snowflakes on both sides, liberals and conservatives. I'm not talking about the people in general, but I'm talking about these talking heads and these government officials, the Democrat side and the Republican side. They're all snowflakes because they can't take the real criticism. They can't win the real battle of ideas. The moment you're correct, they want to sabotage and then flip over the table because they know they're losing. These people get me mad.
United States of America. And Mahmoud Khalil was an individual who was given the privilege of coming to this country to study at one of our nation's finest universities and colleges. And he took advantage of that opportunity, of that privilege, by siding with terrorists, Hamas terrorists who have killed innocent men, women, and children. This is an individual who organized.
By the way, the men and women were mostly conscripted into military service. And then the child, I think there was 1 or 2 kids that were killed on October 7th, and they were actually killed by Israeli fire. If you haven't, I encourage you to look up the Hannibal Doctrine in regards to Israel. That'll give you a lot more answers. Let's continue.
Group protests that not only disrupted college campus classes and harassed Jewish American students and made them. No, she's wrong.
Disrupt classes? Yeah, that's what a protest is supposed to do. Protest is supposed to disrupt, first of all. Second of all, harass Jewish students. There were Jewish students that were actually part of the protest. Many of them are part of the protest, part of the groups of Student for Justice in Palestine, groups of If Not Now, When, parts of Jewish Voices for Peace. So don't sit there and hide behind Jewish people who are fighting against genocide and apartheid. No. You do not get to do that. Out of hearing from Norm Finkelstein, Max Blumenthal, Lee Camp, Aaron Mate, Miko Paled, Katie Halper, so many Jewish voices that are speaking out against the apartheid and genocide that Israel is doing. And there are many, many, many students right now that are Jewish that are also fighting against this apartheid state. And you're saying, oh, you're trying to protect them? Meanwhile, a lot of these Jewish students are trying to protect the innocent Palestinians from being murdered. So don't you dare conflate that. This is the bleach version of Kareem Jean-Pierre. All right, make no mistake. Liars come in many colors. Okay? So guess what? You get the light version this time.
Feel unsafe on their own college campus, but also distributed pro-Hamas propaganda, flyers,
because to them, Palestinian liberation is being pro-Hamas. Here's the students. Make sure. And so there's a lot of people that are fighting against this. They're signing petitions and things like that. I need to pull the petition. I'm sorry. But so that I can share it around. But let me read the caption really quick. This person, Ayal Yacobi, says, breaking terror supporting students and faculty are currently blocking the steps to enter the classroom at Columbia. These extremists at Columbia continue to prove that they prioritize support for terrorism over in education. Oh my God. Twisting words.
As people join us, we are going to sing the Ruth song. If you guys don't know it, it's here. Where you go, I will go, my friends. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, my friends. Where you go, I will go. Students are under attack. What do we do? Stand up, fight back. When students are under attack. What do we do? Stand up, fight back. When immigrants are under attack. When immigrants are under attack. What do we do? Stand up, fight back. What do we do? Stand up, fight back. Stand up, fight back. Say it loud, say it clear. Say it loud, say it clear. We don't want ICE here. We don't want ICE here. Immigrants are welcome here. Immigrants are welcome here. We will never let this slide. Columbia, Columbia, you can't hide. We will never let this slide. We will never let this slide. Katrina Armstrong, you can't hide. On your side. Katrina Armstrong, what do you say? Katrina Armstrong, what do you say? How many boots did you lick today? How many boots did you lick today? Katrina Armstrong, what do you say? Katrina Armstrong, what do you say? How many boots did you lick today? How many boots did you lick today? Say it once, say it twice. Say it once, say it twice.
So, answer me this. Does that look like a violent bunch to you? Good. I'm glad we're on the same page. So when it comes to people like Mahmoud Khalil, people like that gentleman should be able to speak out against a foreign entity. He's not even talking about America. He's talking about a foreign government. And yet he's getting deported for criticizing a foreign government. So let me ask you this. Okay. If we're gonna go down this slippery slope, who can we deport for criticizing Cuba? Can we deport Marco Rubio? Because they're criticizing a foreign government. Or who can we deport for criticizing Russia? Who can we deport for criticizing DPRK, aka North Korea? Who can we deport for criticizing Brazil? Who can we deport for criticizing China? Oh, can we deport Trump for criticizing China? If I criticize, okay, they're adversaries of the United States. Okay, if I criticize Italy, the Italian government, should I be deported? You're part of the G7. If I criticize the German government, should I be deported? If I say screw King Charles and screw the British government, do I get deported for speaking out against one of the United States' closest allies? You see how incongruent this is? You see how out of whack this is? And yet, you say one word against Israel. And by the way, let's keep it up. Let's keep it a bean. I'm gonna let my black ass come out. Where is all this emphasis on anti-blackness in this country, especially when it comes to the anti-black white supremacist laws that's baked within the system of this country? And you don't want to have that much smoke for them, but you're willing to have smoke for people who are advocating for Palestinians, but you're saying they're anti-Semitic, when in reality they're not. What about us? Right? Okay. So dudes can walk around with swastikas and Nazi flags all over this damn country, and they can't get deported back to Europe. But one guy criticizes Israel, and you're saying, well, we got to deport him. No, baby. Start off with the people. Start off with the people. Start off with the people who are the neo-Nazis. Start off with the people who are KKK members. If you're going to go down that slippery slope, all right, let's go down that slippery slope. Let's start off with them. Right? Let's send them back to Germany. Let's send them back to Portugal. Let's send them back to Italy and Spain and Britain. Let's ship them back. Oh, but that's a bridge too far, right? Y'all don't ever, all this smoke for people who just want liberation for an indigenous people. And then it's like, what about all the police that have been bashing our heads in? When do these police officers get deported? What about the police officers who have been killing? What about the police officer that shot Sonia Massey in the face? Can he get deported? All right, y'all. I'm done with this segment. Because this country is cooked. This country is COOKED, cooked. Cooked dead. All right. I did not want this segment to be this long, but baby, it got to me. Anyways, that being said, thank you very much. Please like the stream. Let's get on and get into the chat. I know y'all been talking. I know y'all been chatting. Let me check the Rumble side real quick, just to make sure. Looks like we're good on the Rumble side. Let's check on the Rockfin. Yeah, we got some. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm not having Rockfin today because Rockfin is not working correctly. All right, so. Oh, and by the way, did you guys take the poll? Let me make sure I can pull up the poll. Let me enlarge it so that I can. It's my pun. Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to do the comments, and then I'll take a look at the poll, and then we can discuss. All right, so Nika Wicca said, that's a funny name. I never saw the name Mahmoud Khalil until now. I'm going to research about Mahmoud. I feel so lost. And the thing is, it's like it's a dangerous precedent. It's further dangerous precedent. But yes, look into this issue. Independent media is going to be the best way to go. I'm not sure if the Gray Zone has covered this or Black Agenda Report, but start off with like the actual independent media outlets first and see what they're saying about it, and then work your way out. That's my best suggestion. But thank you very much. Jacqueline says, just been Googling to find out how long the UK had Nelson Mandela on the terrorist watch list and can't find anything, which is weird because I know that the British establishment would have had him on a list somewhere. That's actually very interesting. If you find that out, please let me know. Nicolika says, damn, some online sources are trying to make Mahmoud Khalil look pro-Hamas. I don't know what to believe. First of all, I'm going to say this, and this is a quote I'm saying. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Okay? So some of the people who have been terrorizing the Palestinians, the IOF, we like to call them, that have been terrorizing Palestinians in Israel, they are the terrorists to people who deserve freedom, sovereignty, and self-determination. But to the people who want freedom, sovereignty, and self-determination, they're considered terrorists. See? And so the thing is here's a question. And I think it's best that I could tell you a lot of the answers, but at the same time, it's best for you to look on your own, because I want you to have that confidence in going, I researched this and this is what I know. Because I value people being able to do that. Look up, does an occupied people have the right to resist their occupiers or their oppressors? And take a look at the angle from international law. Now, I will give you the answer. An occupied people has the right to resist their oppressors from occupation. Israel is occupying Palestine. It was also just revealed that they actually cut off the electricity to Palestinians. If Palestinians are also paying for that electricity, and then they're constantly mowing the lawn, which means Israel bombs the Palestinians on a regular basis to keep their numbers down, that also means that they're destroying the utility infrastructures within the region. And if you can control the fuel, electricity, the water, and the food of a particular people, that means they're under occupation. You are literally imprisoning them. And so whoever fights against that, is that person a terrorist? Was John Brown a terrorist? Was Nat Turner a terrorist? Was Nelson Mandela a terrorist? Was Fred Hampton a terrorist? Was Malcolm X a terrorist? For fighting against an oppressor that is choking you and your people, is choking the life out of them, that's starving them, subjecting to disease and cold, that is bombing their places of worship, their hospitals, their schools. Entire bloodlines have been wiped out. Entire bloodlines. Think about bloodlines here in the United States. Like, for instance, and I'm going to go against a black family, like the Johnson bloodline, or the Smith bloodline, or the Freeman bloodline, right? Imagine an entire bloodline's wiped out over 18 months of bombing. And the Lancet puts out an estimate that is somewhere north of 180,000 people. They just have to dig through the rubble and find the dead bodies now. And you mean to tell me that somebody fighting against that is considered a terrorist? It's extremely disproportionate, and it's called collective punishment. And that's what they do. So I know it sounds like a very complex issue, but I'm going to tell you this in a loving fashion from a brother. The issue of Israel and Palestine is actually very simple. And once you discover the truth of what happened since 1948 and before that with Lord Balfour, Theodore Herzl, and all these other actors, once you find out exactly what happened, you'll be like, oh, I see. I see exactly how it is. It's very simple. It is not a complex issue at all, no matter what these people say. Very simple. Love and wish you well on doing your research and, expanding. Roddy says, comically scary the way things are deteriorating in regards to the rights of the U.S. and the West as a whole. Absolutely. Zoe says she's probably taking J Street money through her orangutan looking ass. Be for real. Luz says, I agree, JB, and it's not like any of them had a problem with the previous idiot-in-chief colluding with the tech oligarchy to censor speech online. Amen. Amen. Colin says universities are colonial in the United States. Stop paying tuition to have the cops beat that into you. Roger says, if you want to stop the Democratic Party from co-opting the left, then the only way you can do so is to abolish political parties at every level of government. Each state doing that has a trust-busting effect. I'm not mad at that. Look, I agree with either having multiple parties or none, but we're not going to limit it. Yep. Corporal Commander says, Germany shouldn't invade France. What Germany is doing is wrong. Deport them from the darkness of night. Yup. That's basically how it is. Johnny Davis says, only because the welfare Social Security that their constituents have been getting without qualification. Oh, okay. That's about the Social Security. I'll read that later. Killier Grigor says, Judge did the right thing. They want to make an example out of him. Yep, absolutely. And that's all it really is. It's just, we got to make an example out of this guy. So, people will shut up. Roger says, JB, you and rest of RBN should every time speak about this issue, should advertise when you did the open panel with tag taxpayers against genocide. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He said, I talked with Zinkus at Savvy's B-Day and said, you teach. Oh, he said he teaches at Columbia where this is taking place. Share that RBN panel with Seth from Taxpayers Against Genocide with them so they can start bringing lawsuits to our federal lawmakers. Yeah, that's actually a really good suggestion, Roger. Johnny Davis says, for them it is. And that's the problem. But these people are so sensitive. Yeah. Yeah, they're I mean, they always want to talk about, oh, the left is snowflakes. No. Liberals are snowflakes. And these neocons are snowflakes. And these Zionists are snowflakes. Let's see. Bobby said, privilege. Get the F out of Turtle Island, you Anglo-Saxon. Oh my goodness. All right. So this has been thank you very much. I got that from my my nephew. And love you back. Love you back. All right, let me see. This is crazy. There's a Mandela statue in London, and yet he was considered a terrorist. I said it is in Parliament Square, but they banned his son from visiting. Is it his son or grandson? Either or. It's sad. You know, I'm just trying to make sure I get through as many as I can. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to shift gears and we're going to go into the next segment that I want to get into. But first, before that, I'm going to give a shout out to the patrons on Patreon, because without them, I would not be able to do this work. All right. So here we go. Here are the tiers. So we have Mega JB Faunters, Super Duper JB Faunters, Super JB Faunters, JB Faunters, Comrade, Solidarity, and JB members. And then we want to give a huge shout out to new member. We have Perry Stein. Thank you so very much for joining, and appreciate you and everybody else for your contributions. Just to let you guys know, yeah, my channel is demonetized. So if you like to support the channel, you can support via Patreon or PayPal. So thank you very much for that. All right, so we talked first earlier about free speech versus fascism. We're going to switch gears now. We're going to talk about Elon Musk. Oh, God. Doge targets Social Security. We're going to get into this right now. I cannot stand Elon Musk. That's it. That's the statement. Doge is targeting Social Security. And in doing so, in his targeting of Social Security, oh, sorry, I forgot to show the poll. Oops. I'm going to have to start that again. Sorry. Here's the poll. Out of 53 votes, do you think Mahmoud Khalil should be protected under free speech law? 96% of you said yes. Deported with no free speech said 2. I wonder who was that. And I'm not sure said 2%. That's interesting. 2% thinks he should be deported. Well, there are some different opinions in my audience. But yeah, I think he is under free speech law, and I think this free speech is being violated by the Trump administration. And I think through free speech protection was violated by the Biden administration as well. Anyhow, let's get back into this. So DOGE targets Social Security. Social Security is being targeted by Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency. Some people just call it DOGE. And it's not looking good. As far as Musk is concerned, he really just wants to get rid of Social Security. Because he doesn't want poor people to have any type of breathing room financially, even though they paid into it their entire lives. But let me get into this first, and then we shall go to the article. So let's just listen to what Elon Musk had to say on Fox.
The wage report in entitlement spending, which is which is most of the federal spending is entitlements. So that's like the big one to eliminate. Is that's the sort of $500 billion, maybe $600-700 billion a year. The wage report in entitlement spending, which is which is most of the federal spending is entitlements. So that's like the big one to eliminate. Is that's the sort of $500 billion, maybe $600-700 billion a year.
Wasn't the defense budget for last year somewhere north of $820 billion? And yet you want to focus on us. Here's the thing. When it comes to Elon Musk, someone like him who barely pays into Social Security, and I'll tell you guys why in a minute, wants to take it away from other people who are struggling already. A lot of us are struggling. But he doesn't care, because for him, it's about making the government more efficient, when in reality, it's not about making the government more efficient. It's about getting more money in the hands of the rich like him. This says Musk taps private equity veterans to aid DOGE at Social Security. Now, I'm going to give a shout out to Roger Meadows for this story, for submitting this story. As somebody who is a Social Security disability recipient, this will deeply affect me. And this will deeply affect my mother. In the immediate future. So you can understand why I'm being very urgent about this. Let's continue. It says Elon Musk Department of Government Efficiency has sent 3 individuals with experience in private equity and finance to the Social Security Administration, highlighting the focus that President Donald Trump is putting on rooting out waste and fraud from the nation's social insurance programs. Among those tapped for the task are Antonio Gracias of Valor Equity Partners, who also served on the board of Tesla and was an early investor in SpaceX, which is both of Musk's companies, as well as Scott Coulter, formerly of Lone Pine Capital, and Michael Russo, formerly of Shift4, according to people familiar with the moves who spoke on condition of anonymity. Sorry, I can't talk today. Those names confirmed in agency and court documents underscore the importance that the Social Security Agency has taken a beachhead for Musk's government cost-cutting effort. Trump elevated mid-level anti-fraud specialist Leland DeDuke to be Social Security's acting commissioner last month, skipping over more than 150 higher-ranking supervisors at the agency. DeDuke had cooperated with DOGE, helping to bring Russo and Coulter into the agency, according to a sworn statement built Friday by Tiffany Flick, the former agency chief of staff who retired when DeDuke was promoted. Russo arrived February 3rd and introduced himself as DOGE representative to multiple employees on multiple occasions. He now serves as the agency's chief information officer. Russo has also brought on Akash Baba, a former intern for Peter Thiel's Palantir Technologies, to analyze Social Security data. Baba's onboarding was unusual, according to Flick, who said his background check was held up for a few days. Said she received pressure from Russo and Steve Davis, who runs Musk's Boring Company and has also worked for DOGE, to get Boba credentials by midnight on February 10th. Boba was sworn in over the phone, contrary to standard practice. So they really wanted that guy in. So much so that they sworn him in over the phone. They phoned it in. That doesn't sound suspicious, right? Why the hurry? Flick said that she didn't know what DOGE was working on, but that it seemed to have something to do with allegations of widespread fraud that she considered to be invalid. A spokesperson for the Social Security Administration did not respond to questions about DOGE's work and the agency. Russo, Gates, Coulter, Boba, and Davis also did not respond to messages seeking comment. Trump has used Social Security as a primary example of what he casts as a government rampant with fraud, waste, and abuse, claiming there are people of improbable ages, including millions purportedly over 100 years old, still collecting agency checks. I'm not going to touch Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. No, we're going to get the fraud out of there, Trump told Fox Business in an interview aired on Sunday. You see, where I talk about it all the time, we have people 250 years old and all tremendous fraud. Here's the point. The Duke has repeatedly rebutted that claim. While a database of people who have had Social Security numbers is missing dates of death for millions of records, that doesn't mean those people appear in separate databases of beneficiaries. So, the devil's in the details. So just because they're still listed in Social Security and may still have a number, it doesn't mean they still are beneficiaries being sent a check every single month. And yet Trump wants you to think just because they got a Social Security number, oh, they're receiving a check. My 2-year-old great grandnephew got a Social Security card, but he ain't receiving no check. Just because he has a Social Security card doesn't mean he's getting something. Because they have to be over the age of 62. That's for early retirement. And then regular 65. Or they have to be disabled and collect either supplemental security income, SSI, or Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI, people like myself. So therefore, all these people he's talking about, oh, they're over 100 years old. They're 150 years old. They're almost 200 years old. It doesn't mean they're actually getting benefit checks. They're probably just on the list, but they're not under beneficiaries. A lot of times when people find out, it's stopped. And people will come up with stories like, oh, well, my mom has been dead for 6 months and I still got Social Security checks. Okay. 6 months, that's what? Close to $7,000, maybe $8,000? But then they'll also go, but the government caught them and they had to pay it all back. So what's the problem? Anywho, under Trump, the agency is already undergoing reorganization with senior staffers exiting and job cuts and office reductions in the works. Moves which have alarmed Democrats to see them as a threat to benefits programs popular with the American public. So he's targeting Social Security. This could mean, and I talked about this on Sunday on RBN, but this could mean catastrophe for those of us who are either elderly or disabled. Because those checks are supposed to come in the third every single month. And the government's supposed to be reliable. Like, that's the one thing it don't miss. On-time payments. But if Musk starts to mess with Social Security and I'm not even talking about taking away, I'm just talking about delaying the benefit checks coming out or direct deposits. That's going to screw over millions of elderly and disabled Americans in this country. And don't be surprised if you hear a lot of them talk about, well, they started the eviction process because I'm late on my rent and because my check hasn't come in yet. And my landlord doesn't take partial payments. Do you see the issue with this? Do you see the problem? Do you see the danger on the horizon for wanting to cut? And people are like, well, and some liberals will be like, oh, well, they shouldn't call it entitlements. No. I'm going to sit on that word. I'm going to claim that word. Entitlements? Yes, entitlements. Because you, me, and your mama, and your daddy, and your grandmama, and everybody and their mama and grandmama have paid into Social Security, have contributed to this country, and we can't get that money back and on time? I'm sorry. No. And it don't work like that. Now, I want to get into this. Let's just do a short little overview of exactly how Social Security works. Because, I mean, we pretty much have an idea. But I think it's good to just go over, just to refresh in our minds. Let me go here. And then we'll talk about it on the other side. All right. So, how Social Security works.
How does Social Security work?
The government wants to make sure that you have at least some income after you retire. So if you've worked for 10 years or more and paid your Social Security taxes, which typically come out of your paycheck, you'll get Social Security retirement benefits. When you're ready to retire, the Social Security Administration takes your 35 highest paid years and plugs them into a formula that determines your monthly benefit.
Does everyone qualify?
If you spent a combined total of 10 years doing work for which you paid Social Security taxes, you qualify. You can start collecting as early as age 62, though the longer you wait, the higher your monthly benefit. If you wait until you're 70 to collect, you'll get your maximum monthly benefit. If you become disabled before you reach age 62 or before you work for 10 years, you may still qualify for Social Security disability insurance.
Got it. Those monthly payments will really help me.
That's the idea. Social Security was never intended to replace your salary or to be your sole income. It was meant to help supplement your retirement income. To learn more.
So here's the thing. Then let's talk about the history of Social Security, because I think that's important. Because we need to know the true purpose of it and the apparatus. So let's go straight to the website, shall we? Okay. Let me see here. Okay. So this is from SSA.gov. And it was Franklin Delano Roosevelt that actually signed the Social Security Act. And one of the things he says is, in the important field of security for our old people, it seems necessary to adopt 3 principles. Let me enlarge this so you guys can read this. First, non-contributory old age pensions for those who are now too old to build up their own insurance. It is, of course, clear that for perhaps 30 years to come, funds will have to be provided by the states and the federal government to meet these pensions. Second, compulsory contributory annuities, which in time will establish a self-supporting system for those now young and for future generations. Third, voluntary contributory annuities, by which individual initiative can increase the annual amounts received in old age. It is proposed that the federal government assumes 1/2 of the cost of the old age pension plan, which are ultimately to be supplanted by self-supporting annuity plans. Basically, what they expect you to do is to also save up. So it's like, it's supposed to supplement your income, right? The problem is that a lot of companies stopped giving out pensions, and then they started doing 401ks, but not every company does a 401k plan. So therefore, in order to be able to save money, you have to make more than just a starvation wage in order to be able to put money away, to squirrel it away. But the problem is that we now live in a system where you can't squirrel it away because everybody's living paycheck to paycheck. So therefore, when it comes time for Social Security to come around, that's the only money we got, is because we weren't paid enough in pensions or in retirement funds or in our daily pay in order to actually save money for retirement. Because that squirreling away that we were supposed to do means that you have to have some disposable income to squirrel away. But if you're not getting it, then that means that by the time Social Security comes, you're only getting that little pittance, which means that the nature of Social Security must expand. But that's a whole nother conversation. Let's continue. The amount necessary at this time for the initiation of unemployment compensation, old age security, children's aid, and the promotion of public health, as outlined in the report of the Committee on Economic Security, is approximately $100 million. The establishment of sound means towards a greater future economic security of the American people is dictated by a prudent consideration of the hazards involved in our national life. No one can guarantee this country against the dangers of future depressions, but we can reduce these dangers. We can eliminate many of the factors that cause economic depressions, and we can provide the means of mitigating their results. This plan for economic security is at once a measure of prevention and a method of alleviation. We pay now for the dreadful consequence of economic insecurity, and dearly. This plan presents a more equitable and infinitely less expensive means of meeting those costs. We cannot afford to neglect the planned duty before us. I strongly recommend action to attain the objectives sought in this report. So, basically saying that this is the point. Okay, presidential statement signing the Social Security Act on August 14th, 1935. says today, a hope of many years standing in a large part fulfilled. The civilization of the past 100 years with its startling industrial changes has tended more and more to make life insecure. Young people have come to wonder what will be their lot when they came to old age. The man with a job has wondered how long the job would last. The Social Security measure gives at least some protection to 30 million of our citizens who will reap direct benefits through unemployment compensation, through old age pensions, and through increased services for the protection of children and the prevention of ill health. We can never insure 100% of the population against 100% of the hazards and vicissitudes of life, but we have tried to frame a law which will give some measure of protection to the average citizen and to his family against the loss of a job and against poverty-ridden old age. Here's the point that I want to make right now. Back in the day, when you got old, you were reduced to being in poverty because you couldn't work anymore. And sometimes those people who were lived in poverty, or those older people, they had a lot of times they lived with their families because they were older. But that would also still put an economic strain on the households. And so if they were able to get Social Security checks, like what FDR signed into law, then that means that puts a strain on the household while their elderly parents are still being taken care of in their final years whilst at home. Fast forward a few decades, and now a lot of elderly people do not live with their families anymore in this country because we can't afford it. But then on top of it, now they have to live in assisted living facilities. They have to live in old folks' homes now. And then guess what? These old folks' homes and assisted living facilities take the entire Social Security check away. So then that's what they're left with. They're left with really nothing outside of it. And then on top of that, a lot of them weren't paid an actual living wage, particularly a lot of Black Americans. And so then by the time we get to Social Security age, we have no savings. We have no pensions. We have nothing to supplement. We have nothing to have primary for the Social Security check to supplement. The Social Security check becomes their main source of income. This is why many more elderly people and disabled people live in poverty, because that's the main and primary and sometimes sole source of income. And then for those of us who are disabled, if you try to earn over a certain amount, they think, well, you're no longer disabled. So they cut you off completely. And all you need to do is make 1 cent over the amount that's allotted for earned income. 1 cent. And Social Security will take your entire check away. They don't take it by measures of, oh, well, you make $1 or $2 over. If you make $2 over, we'll take $1 away in your check. No. They'll take the whole entire thing away. It won't be measured. It'll just be like, oh, nope, you're not disabled, even though you are. How do I know? It happened to me back in 2019. Because I tried to supplement my Social Security disability check with actually making more money so that I could actually be able to live, at least keep my head above water. And in doing so, I got punished. Because we live in a system that does not give people the wherewithal in order to be able to squirrel away. And then if they do it through 401ks. And the 401ks are subject to the whims of the markets. And the markets can be volatile. And people have lost completely all of their life savings, all of their retirement because of a stock market crash. And this economy, according to Professor Richard Wolff, crashes every 4 to 7 years. So every 4 to 7 years, somebody is losing out on the retirement in their 401k because it's being subject to these volatile markets. Instead of actually being put in a pension like we had in many companies beforehand. And so now Elon Musk is trying to do the same thing. He's trying to privatize Social Security. Social Security is literally a trust. How is Social Security financed? It's very easy. Social Security actually lays it out. Wait, that's not what I want. Let's go there. That's not what I wanted. Let me see. Here we go. Okay. So, how is Social Security financed? It's very simple, very easy. Stay with me. Social Security is financed through a dedicated payroll tax. Employers and employees each pay 6.2% of wages up to the taxable income of $176,100 in 2025, while the self-employed pay 12.4%. Now, let's stop there for a second, because here's also another disparity that I want to talk about. Because people talk about, oh my God, we can't afford Social Security because Social Security is, it's running out. It wouldn't have to run out if we actually tax the rich more. If we actually tax the people who are higher income. By the way, I'm gonna tell you guys this: $176,100 is middle class. That's not rich. It's middle class. Oh, you thought $80,000 was middle class? Oh, baby, no. Not in this economy. So, meaning that the $176,101 is not taxed at all. So if they're an employee, they don't get that 6.2%, that 6.2 cents taken out of that $171,001 or any other dollars earned on top of that. Or if they're self-employed, they don't get that, I think it's 12.4%. Sorry, I can't see. Yeah. They don't get that 12.4% taken out on that $176,101. Meaning that anybody who makes over $176,100, all that income does not get taxed for Social Security. Meaning all that income that could be contributing to the elderly and disabled in this country is left in the hands of the super rich. The same people that stole our surplus value when we were working are able to keep it and not contribute back to the people who actually gave of their lives in order to make sure that their companies thrived. So when politicians talk about expanding Social Security, that means they want to lift the cap. So if it's $176,100, they actually want to raise it so that, let's say, let's do the math. All right. $176,100, right? $176,100. Let's times it by 2. If we just times it by 2, that's $352,200. Let's say we start taxing it up to $352,200. Do you know how much more money in Social Security we would get? How many people in this country make $352,200? I'd say probably around 10%. But that 10%, if we were to tax them at 6.2, or somebody like me, I would do a more progressive tax. If you're earning over this, well, we're doing 20. But here's the thing. That money can actually go and dump more into Social Security And on top of that, number one, keep it solvent, which really it's always solvent because people are always paying into it. But two, we can also expand the benefit amounts for people who are elderly and disabled in this country so that they can actually live instead of just trying to survive and keep their head above water. And now you got to think about the Elon Musks, the people who are set to become the first trillionaires within the next 5 years. All those capital gains, all that wealth, all that compensation, all that wealth that's held up in stocks and bonds and things like that. And you mean to tell me that we can't tax them for Social Security? We can't tax the people who have $1 billion? We can only tax them up to $171,000? What if we started taxing up to $1.76 billion? $1 million. What if we just did that? You know how much more money in Social Security would there be? How solvent it would be? Because the thing is, Social Security really is just a tax for the middle class. It's not actually a tax for anybody that's rich, which they should be paying into, but they don't. And yet it's funny because these rich people, by the time they hit 65 or 70, they can actually start claiming Social Security retirement. And they can start getting a check, even though they're billionaires, they're millionaires. So that's how Social Security is funded. Let's continue on this. Total income, including interest to the combined OASI and the DI trust funds, amounted to $1.351 trillion in 2023, $1.233 trillion from the net payroll tax contributions, $51 billion from taxation of benefits, and $67 billion in interest. The payroll tax rates are set by law, and for OASI and DI, apparently to earnings up to a certain amount. This amount is called the contribution and benefit base or taxable minimum, rises as average wages increase. So that's pretty much it. That's how Social Security is financed, right? I was looking up a few numbers. So let me share this. So I just Googled how much does Social Security pay in total each year. So in the AI overview, it says in 2023, the Social Security program paid out $1.379 billion in total benefits. This was to 67.1 million people, including retired workers, people with disabilities, and survivors. So basically, there's a lot of people that get Social Security checks. Many who are either elderly or disabled or survivor benefits, right? But it doesn't mean that they still didn't pay into the system. And it's not some free handout. Don't let anybody ever tell you that, okay? Because it's public money, and you also paid in to the system. Facts and figures about Social Security. 70.6 million people received benefits from programs administered by the Social Security Administration in 2022. 5.6 million people were newly awarded Social Security benefits in 2022. 55% of adult Social Security beneficiaries in 22 were women. 55.6 was the average age of disabled worker beneficiaries in 2022. And 85% of supplemental security income recipients received payments because of disability or blindness in 2022. So that's these statistics, right? But we can actually make this more solvent if we were to raise the cap. All you have to do is raise the cap. I call it to either quadruple or quintuple the cap. Because if you are a capitalist and you're extracting surplus value from your workers, that surplus value better make a turnaround, a U-turn, and take his ass right back to us for our old age or our disabled status. And so, I'm just thinking about how many people who are poor and working poor, who are either elderly or disabled, that are getting Social Security, that are going to be ruined if Elon gets his grubby little hands on Social Security. This man is going to have everybody's mama out here, everybody's mama coming after him. I played this on Sunday, but it's worth playing again. This lady ain't playing, y'all. She means it. Better get out of mama's way. She about to go off. Not off.
President Musk, if my doggone check don't be in my account next month, you're going to need more than Homeland Security. In fact, going on 5 now, you don't need Homeland Security. You're going to need Jesus. It's 5 things you're going to need. JESUS and all the angels. Let my check be a day late or $1 short. I don't want to hear it. You better hire everybody back you fired, get them people back to working to get my check in my account next month. I don't want to hear it. I do not want to hear it. And everybody who's supposed to get a check, they better get it. And it better not be late. Because if you think they scaled the walls of Washington on January 6th, you're going to see me scaling the walls. Right? That letter don't be there in April. Let my check don't be there. I'll be scaling the walls. You need to deport yourself. And don't go back to South Africa. Because that ain't safe for you right now. That ain't safe for you. You better find somewhere on Mars or somewhere to go. Let them checks be late. And they better not be late now another month. I don't want to hear no talk about the SSS, the SSI check. I don't want to hear no talk about it. You put everything back the way it's supposed to be and get your tail from up there in Washington and take Wig with you. I mean that with all my heart. You better call on Jesus.
And she said, and take Wig with you. Oh my God. I want to send Auntie a card. I want to send her some flowers now. Mama went, whoa. But I'm telling you right now, look, if you're disregarding this message because you're not disabled and you're not in retirement age, you in danger, girl. Because one of 2 things is going to happen to you. Either one, something's going to happen and you're going to become disabled and you're going to need that disability benefits. Or 2, you're going to get old and you're still going to need those retirement benefits. Besides that, you won't get them because you're dead. So I don't care if you're 16 years old and you just started working, and I don't care if you're in your 50s and you're still not retirement age, but you know, you're looking forward to getting that Social Security check. Do not let this man touch our Social Security. He's going to do it, though. He's going to try. And that's going to bring more ruin to this nation. And this is why we talk about building mutual aid, building dual power. And also a really good idea. I think Roger Meadows mentioned this, is by trying to do ballot initiatives to establish state and municipal public banks and try to make a state version of a Social Security so that the money that is put in through taxes is given to the bank. The bank then takes that money, puts it in the market, makes it grow. The revenue extra that is made from it, it will give it back to the city, and then the city or the state can disseminate it among the people. I'm telling you right now, if we start doing more things to establish that, we can at least shield the workers and the poor and disabled and elderly from the whims of these maniacal maniacs. These, I'm trying to be clean in my language, y'all. From these horrible monsters. I'm just saying. Let's start building dual power. Let's start doing mutual aid. Let's start working towards other solutions so that we can at least shield ourselves or kind of buffer while we're trying to change this system. And by the way, out of the 5 largest banks in the world, China has four, and I think are all state owned. Meaning public banks are actually a good thing, and they actually help the people because they're owned by the public. So, yeah, Elon's trying to take over, and he's eyeing Social Security. And the funny thing is, there's absolutely nothing efficient about that. Because if he really wanted to cut costs, then all he had to do is just cut costs in the Department of Defense. Even if you cut the Department of Defense by 50%, that's about $400 billion you cut from the budget. Just cut the defense budget by 50%. If you close down most of the military bases around the world, that's a lot of your money right there. But they're not interested in any type of efficiency. They're only interested in tearing this country apart just to make a dollar. All right, go ahead and like the stream. Thank you so very much to everybody for tuning in for that segment. Appreciate it. All right, so let's go into the chats. Let me go into, let's check the Rumble chat to see if I have any Rumble rants. I don't think so. We got a few people watching though, so that's always nice. So good to see you guys in Rumble. Let's go into the rest of the chat. And let me do this. Okay. All right, so oop. I went up a little too far. Interesting question, Edward. It says, how does Doge sufficient when they just slash social programs without doing any kind of investigative research? We have the money to fund Social Security, but the elites don't want to help the people. Yeah. Also, excuse me, if they're going to cut Social Security, That also means cutting the jobs of people who work in the Social Security office. Those lines are long enough as it is. Have you ever been to the Social Security office? Those lines are long. And if you go in there without an appointment, you will be there for 3 and 4 hours. Easy, easy. And so if you start cutting those jobs, guess what? Longer wait times. People get their Social Security cards slower. Benefit checks may start coming late, or benefit checks may be delayed. And so then guess what? You just made the lives of American people worse. This is what happens when you underfund programs. Now, thank you very much for that, Edward. And the thing is, when you start to slash programs, you start to take away services that are meant for the American people. Jeanette says, I am scared and my friends are going to lose their Social Security, disability, and Medicare, and I'm scared for everyone on it. Here's the thing. I'm gonna have to be very blunt with you. And I don't wish to be, because I want you to remain vigilant. And the concern still needs to be there, but I don't want you to be scared. But number one, this was inevitably going to happen because people like Joe Biden laid the groundwork for the cutting of Social Security, Medicare. Even Barack Obama wanted to do it until Bernie Sanders challenged him on it. So, of course, they want to cut these because they don't want to cut defense. They rather cut a program that keeps elderly people living, and they rather give them money for death machines because it's about the people at the top, not us. Some of us, or all of us, may end up losing our Social Security. We may end up losing our Medicare. I don't want it to happen because I don't want us to be harmed like this. But we're dealing with people who have no conscience. And by people, I don't mean just one half of the Union Party. Neither one has a conscience. And so one side will play on your fears and tell you to donate to their Act Blue, and the other side will fulfill your fears by doing the very thing that you're scared of. And then the other side will go, well, if we're going to try to get it back, so donate to our Act Blue again. And this is why we talk about mutual aid. This is why we talk about building dual power. This is why we talk about actually doing for our neighbors what the governments fail and neglect to do. I'm also equally scared. I'm scared for my mother. Of course, I'm scared for myself. I'm scared for a whole host of friends and loved ones who either receive disability, SSI, or Social Security retirement. And really, anybody you know that's over the age of 65, they're probably getting a Social Security check. And if that check goes away, and it's not fair. But nothing about capitalism is fair, because it's about extraction. Because these corporations, they extracted as much as they can out of the world. Now they look inward and they start to extract the rest out of us. And that's what's going on right now. So this is why organizing with your fellow neighbors and loved ones is so important. If you are fearful, direct that into action that will help the people around you. Use that energy to direct action to help those around you to mitigate the blows from the corporate dictators. That's the best advice that I can give you right now. And it's scary, absolutely. But Miss Janet, I'm sorry. We'll get through this. We definitely will. Lou says most of the fraudulent Social Security recipients are artificial people created by corrupt bureaucrats to steal themselves. Mm-hmm. Nickel Wicca, yeah, they're gonna make it. It's gonna be very hard because you got to remember, Google, has a lot of roughshod. If you want to, there's a search engine called DuckDuckGo. You might want to see if you can download that and use that search engine, and that you may fare better with DuckDuckGo. Okay. Yeah. Edward says privatization, education, healthcare, post office, Social Security would never work because these are public goods. That's like trying to turn a library into a private enterprise. It would never work. Janet says, my entire income, I've never made enough money to save while I was working. That's a lot of us. A lot of us. Thus, James says, communist organizers won Social Security. Now y'all wonder why I'm a communist. Because I want to see everybody taken care of. I want to see everybody have housing. Everybody have education. Everybody have good, healthy food in their bellies. I want everybody to be able to enjoy the environment. I want everybody to be able to move freely among this country. I want everybody to be able to have utilities. I want everybody to live a dignified and healthy and happy life. And I want them to be able to do it and choose how that life is democratically. Human Rights for All says the people living paycheck to per paycheck, if can't afford food for their children, will wind up in the street if they don't have support, just like the other millions on the street. What capitalist greed has done to this country, repeat 1920s to 1930s. Mm-hmm. Thank you so very much. Fire Repo says, my dear activist friend is on her way over, so just wanted to send James and all of you love once again. Power to the people, much love. Say hello to your activist friend from me, okay? Tell them to stay up, okay? Zoe says, my mom has worked in this country for 35 years and her Social Security is an unlivable wage. She will be my dependent until the good Lord calls her. So it's so unfair. The American dream is a lie. Yeah. Kate Mack says, JB, so glad to see you and I appreciate this topic so much. I am also on disability, injury-related work. And you are spot on as usual. We don't make a living wage. And if Musk takes it, yeah. There's a lot of disabled people that will be destroyed. Chris C says he's going to badly regret it if Social Security is touched, and let alone think about it. We have a large elderly population here in Florida. Think about it. I'm just saying. Wesley said Elon Musk, Elon Musk didn't get any votes. Nope. And he's able to run a government agency even though he's not a federal worker. Roger says DM since no rock fan. All right, so I'll go into that real quick. Oh, thanks, Roger. I see that. Yeah, that's nice. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to share my screen really quick just so we can see this. I just want people to be at least be able to read this part. Thank you very much for this. Roger says, here's something else. The degradation of Social Security also happened when maybe not started under Obama, but Obama put it on overdrive is the gig economy by moving us from W-2 jobs to 1099 jobs. But when you do your taxes, you're not owed money, but you owe money because it wasn't taken out of your pay on a weekly basis. You wouldn't think we'd have more money that maybe we can actually physically pay our taxes that we owe in a year before the next tax bill is due, as well as manually put money into Social Security. But even without having taxes being taken out of your paycheck on a weekly basis, you're still living by the margin. So you spend every red cent you get on paying bills, nothing to save. Let's not forget Social Security does not close the income inequality gap because we have not made, it was not made to keep up with the cost of living. We should have a state version of Social Security that closes that gap, maybe even puts it above the cost of living. We're going to have to run this as a ballot initiative through the states. Take a look at this. All right, so I'll try to get this in. I'm not sure if I'll be able to read it all, Roger, but I'll do my best because I want to get to this next segment. Okay. So it says Florida ballot measures that deal with introducing or raising existing taxes requires a 60% approval for ratification, which is why the tax introduced has to not touch the working class and must be overwhelmingly popular. Now also seeing that 10% of their population makes over $200,000 yearly, over 65% Floridians make less than $100,000 yearly. Then I say run a citizen ballot measure amendment, introducing a state income and profit bracket system that will only tax the money that is made over $200,000 yearly. So if you make $235,000, $35,000 will be subject to your state income tax. You can define the brackets however you please. I actually agree with that. It says it is difficult to get a precise percentage of Floridians earning under $100,000 annually, but a rough estimate suggests that over 65% of Florida households fall below that income range based on median household income data. Here's a breakdown of income data for Florida compared to U.S. Median household income. Florida's median household income is around $67,917. U.S. median household income is around $78,538. The distribution. The largest share of households in Florida have an income in the $75,000 to $100,000 range, with the 20th percentile being around $44,200. Top 10% of income. To be in the top 10% of income earners in Florida, you need to make roughly $253,154. Bottom 20 is roughly 44% of the state household make below $22,200. So $22,200, that's pennies. That's a pittance. He says, I outlined a number of taxes that can be run as separate initiatives that could break the 66% threshold. What we have to do is target all those neighborhoods where individuals make 5 figures. I agree with that. A, an inheritance tax for asset values valued at $1 million plus. B, an estate tax for estates valued at $5 million plus. C, a tax on money the trustee is holding for both the beneficiary and settlor. D, a sales tax on big ticket items, $2,000 and up. E, a gift tax on high value items of $1,000 and up. F, a capital gains tax. G, carried interest tax. H, tax on high frequency trading. I, ban stock buybacks to force shareholders, board of directors, CEOs to reinvest in their companies to raise wages, hire more, and buy whatever is needed to improve their companies for the betterment of their workers, the public, consumers, and better be stewards of the environment. Part J, tax on highly speculative predatory practices. K, dynasty trusts will be deemed unconstitutional. L, tax subsidies given to those who wish to come together and form cooperatives, with multi-stakeholder cooperatives being given highest priority and percentage, with those wanting to form worker cooperatives receiving second highest priority subsidy percentage. Should either of those measures get ratified, and then next ballot measure for the following even number election would be the Public Bank of Florida to pay for infrastructure, or using tax deposits to pay for it by the rich, offering all infrastructure to the public sewage, water, power grid, broadband, and transportation free at the point of service. And I made it all the way through. Thank you very much for all that beautiful information, Roger. You are a gentleman and a scholar. Let's continue. Phil says, will the USA ever be great again after its so-called American century ended in 1991? America was only great for a small subset of people. And some people consider it great because, like, for instance, during the really after the Second World War, going into the 1950s and 60s and into the early 70s, you had the economic boom where a lot of, let's just be real, a lot of white people moved into the suburbs and they were actually able to live on one income, which was not the same reality of black people in that same point in time. Let's just be real. They got the GI Bill. You know, they got, you know, the dollar went a whole lot farther. But that was because they started a war economy after World War II, producing for the military-industrial complex. So much so that even President Eisenhower, in his ending address, actually warned about the dangers of the growing military-industrial complex. And now we basically are being ruled by them as we speak. But as for America being great, America was only being great as long as it was stealing from other people. I'm just being real. And then we didn't realize, or we failed to realize, that America was actually stealing from other people in order to make our lives better, which is what a lot of European nations did. Look at all of Africa. So as far as America actually being great, if you're talking about great in size, great in economic size, okay. But if you're talking about great as a superlative, absolutely not. Any country that started itself on genocide, there's no greatness there, only degradation. But America can be great, but it requires worker-centered power in order to be able to make that happen. All right, so let's move on to our final segment. This is something I wanted to talk about because I thought it was very important. The reason being is because I don't think it gets talked about enough. And I think it's very important. Let's get into it. Class and mental health connection. When we talk about mental health in this country, a lot of times people usually talk about it when something really tragic happens. If somebody harms themselves, takes their own life, takes the lives of others. But they don't talk about the anxiety. They don't talk about the depression. They don't talk about the diseases of despair that happen in this country. And so when we talk about mental health, from a macro perspective, this country is sorely lacking. Even from a historical context, and I encourage everybody to look up Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, the lecture by Dr. Joy DeGruy, where she talks about the passed down trauma from freedmen, Black Americans, from slavery on down till today. But let's also talk about the negligence and trauma of white people, and then them seeing and witnessing the suffering of Black Americans, and them their pathology is warped so that when they see us suffer, it's not seen as immediate. It's not seen as, oh my God, that's a human suffering. It's somebody less than human that's suffering, so we don't need to be as urgent. And that's passed down. That's something of the historical macro context. Then we get the context of class and mental health. I'm going to make a statement. Most poor people can't get therapy because we can't afford it, because we don't have universal health care. It's not because we don't want it. It's because we're priced out. We're locked out. We're paywalled. And so in order to be able to get it, you have to be in a higher class. And more specifically, for those of us who are Black Americans in this country, which I consider to be Black American to be a class, right? We're locked out as well. And because of the racial disparities, the lockout is even harder. And then you also have the disparities within the mental health community that look at us. And the health community overall, they're still trying to get out the white supremacy that is still embedded. I even talked about the white supremacy that's embedded in even transplants, kidney transplants, and in dialysis. It's in women's health, right? The father of gynecology actually operated on Black female enslaved women without anesthesia, because he felt that Black women don't actually feel pain. And that has been carried down to even medical textbooks now saying, well, Black people, they don't feel pain as much as white people. So you don't think that doesn't affect within the mental health community? Now, I want you to think about the poor white people that's in Appalachia, where they can't get mental health. Or the poor black people that's down in the hood, where they can't get mental health. And then what do we do when we can't get the mental health that we really need? We turn to substances. We self-medicate because we're trying to soothe or solve or mitigate a pain or trauma that has happened to us within our lives. So of course, Black people took to the crack epidemic like a moth to a flame. Because look at our history. Look at the trauma that was left. And then you pour into our neighborhoods via the CIA a substance that is temporary in nature, that can cause us to kill ourselves. And then you also make it so that people within our own neighborhoods also sell us that same substance. And then the money from the sales of that go back to the CIA so they can fund the wars that they're doing in South America in order to take over their countries. It's all tied together. And this is the thing that a lot of people just don't understand. And so here's the thing. We also got to talk about the issues of capitalism coupled with the issues of mental health. Because a lot of times people don't talk about that either. Let me go here. Okay. Why are you switching on me? No, don't you play video. I didn't ask you. Sorry. Anyways, let's start here. This is from the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So it says, Black African Americans says what happens at the intersection of mental health and one's experience as a member of the Black community. And I'm going to also try to mix in this as just generally as a class issue, but I'm also specifically talking about, us Black folks too, because we got to hyper focus on it because we were treated special in a negative sense for most of our existence here in this country, and now we have to be treated in more of a positive sense in a special way in this country, which means more hyper focusing on some of the most marginalized. But it says what happens at the intersection of mental health and one's experience as a member of the Black community. While the experience of being Black in America varies tremendously, there is a shared cultural factors that play a role in helping define mental health and supporting well-being, resiliency, and healing. Parts of this is shared culture experience, family connections, values, expressions to spirituality or music, reliance on community and religious networks are enriching and can be a great source of strength and support. However, another part of this shared experience, being subject to racism, discrimination, and inequity can significantly affect a person's mental health. Being treated or perceived as less than because of the color of your skin can be stressful and even traumatizing. Additionally, members of the Black community face structural challenges accessing the care and treatment they need. So therefore, and it's not just blatant, because people think, well, the trauma is from KKK members burning a cross in your front yard. No, some of that is from the microaggressions from some people that don't realize, or they may realize that they're doing microaggressions against us and make us think that we're less than just because of the color of our skin. Sometimes this may be when we are being tried for a particular crime and somebody who is white that's being tried for a particular crime, and maybe we might be tried for a crime we didn't commit, or because police saw us and we fit the description, right? And then we get arrested. And then next thing you know, we see the person who did maybe either the same thing as us or what they're charged with the same thing as us. And then they get off easier than what we do. So we're constantly seen as less than. Never mind the disparities that happen within the medical community. Never mind the mental toll that it takes on Black families whenever they want to get a housing appraisal. When the house appraiser comes, they actually have to take away everything that signifies that that is a Black household, just so that they can be able to get a fair amount on their appraisal. And this is still happening, by the way, still, and it's 2025. What happened to people like George Floyd? You don't think we didn't have collective trauma from that? From seeing that? 8 minutes and 46 seconds? You don't think we don't have collective trauma after seeing Sonia Massey shot in the face? You don't think we have collective trauma by seeing Jordan Neely choked to death? Speaking of Jordan Neely, if we actually had a good, robust, universal healthcare and mental health care apparatus in this country, Jordan Neely would probably still be alive. We probably wouldn't even know his name. According to U.S. Health and Human Services Offices of Minority Health, Black adults in the U.S. are more likely than white adults to report persistent symptoms of emotional distress, such as sadness and feeling like everything is an effort. Okay, stop here. Everything is an effort. Let me ask y'all this. Black people in the chat, what do we always say when it comes to effort? We have to work 10 times as what? Finish the sentence. We have to work 10 times as what to get as far? So that's the point. That's the point. We have to get 10 times as much to get half as far. And you don't think that doesn't have a debilitating effect on our mental health? This is a class issue as well as an issue of identity and race. And until we actually fix this system, this is going to continue. This is going to perpetuate. So let's continue. Black adults living below the poverty line are more than twice as likely to report serious psychological distress than those with more financial security. And here's the point. Despite the needs, only 1 in 3 Black adults with mental illness receive treatment. According to the American Psychiatric Association's Mental Health Facts for African Americans guide, they're also less likely to receive guideline-consistent care, less frequently included in research, more likely to use emergency rooms or primary care rather than mental health specialists. Now, let's get into the socioeconomic disparities. Socioeconomic factors can make treatment options less available. In 2020, 10.4% of Black adults in the United States had no form of health insurance. The Black community, like other communities of color, are more likely to experience socioeconomic disparities, such as exclusion from health, educational, social, and economic resources. These disparities may contribute to worse mental health outcomes. Stigma, negative attitudes and beliefs towards people who live with mental health conditions is pervasive within the U.S., can be particularly strong within the Black community. Although beliefs and attitudes varies, research shows that many Black adults, especially older adults, view mental health conditions as a consequence of personal weakness. As a result, people may experience shame about having a mental illness and worry that they may be discriminated against due to their condition. For many in the Black community, it could be incredibly challenging to discuss the topic of mental health due to how they may be perceived by others. This fear could prevent them from seeking mental health care when they need it. And let me ask you this. This also includes men, just in general, because a lot of times we're told to suck it up and be a man, and therefore we have to hold it all inside. And do we seek help? Do we get therapy? Absolutely not. And then what happens? We fuck shit up because we held it in and we didn't let it out. We didn't have a release. We held into trauma. So this also goes, between genders, men too. So imagine what it's like to be a black man. And then black women are constantly at the bottom of the ladder within their socioeconomic status. And guess how they must feel? Treated like shit sometimes. Shit on by even some black men. So mental health is a very huge issue. And let's focus just on class by itself. How many of us are told to suck it up? How many of us are told to just deal with it? How many of us are told, well, life's not fair. And yet we have to suck it up and go to work and get paid a pittance while our bosses are getting their second and third yachts. So it talks further about people going, to faith institutions also as well. It says Black people have been historically and negatively affected by prejudice and discrimination in the healthcare system in the U.S. Unfortunately, many Black people still have the negative experience where they attempt to seek treatment. Provider bias, both conscious and unconscious, is a lack of cultural competency that can result in misdiagnosis and inadequate treatment. This ultimately leads to a mistrust of mental health professionals and create a barrier for many to engage in treatment. I'm going to give you a quick example. I forgot to look for the video, but I remember it mostly. So there was a woman in the maternity ward that was about to give birth, a Black woman. And one of the nurses, a white nurse, went to talk to her. And as she was talking to the Black woman was doing this. As she was talking to her. The white nurse said, I'm going to do a psychological consult on her because she keeps hitting herself in the head. Black people who are watching, what was I just doing? Black charge nurse goes, was she just patting her head like this? Was her hair, And she was like, yeah. She's like, no, you don't need to do a psychological consult on her. What's happening is she either got a weave or sew in, and her head is itching. And if you scratch it, it'll mess it up. So what Black women do is they pat it to relieve the itch. That's what they do. But that's a cultural thing. That requires cultural competency. But some people don't realize that because they don't know our culture. And then if that woman had got a psychological consult, what could have happened? What could have happened to her after she had her baby? All because she was just trying to alleviate an itch. See what I mean? Cultural competency is also a thing that matters. It says Black people may also be more likely to identify and describe physical symptoms related to mental health problems. For example, they may describe body aches and pains while talking about depression. A healthcare provider who is not culturally competent may not recognize these as symptoms of a mental health condition. Additionally, Black individuals are more likely to receive a misdiagnosis of schizophrenia with expressing symptoms related to mood disorders. So this is something that a lot of people don't realize. And a lot of times, some people will see you as, if you have the appearance of being on a lower economic status, they may think that you're just trying to get Adderall or Valium or any of these other type of medications just so that you can get high, when in reality, you actually need them. But because of your appearance, they go by that, and your socioeconomic status, well, you're not really deserving of it because we think you're going to get desperate and just trying to sell it or try to use it to get high. And how many people does this happen to? I want to share this as well. This is from the NIH. And then we'll get to a video that I really want to share. It says, under results, this is from the NIH, says evidence suggests that lower social class may be associated with reduced access to primary and secondary mental health care and increased likelihood of access to crisis services, and patients of lower social class may not benefit from all mental health interventions. With reduced effectiveness, while limited, there was some indication that psychosocial interventions could encourage increased employment rates. So basically, that also can affect your ability to be able to get and keep and hold a job. If you're constantly under disease of despair, that means that you're constantly depressed. And if you're constantly depressed, but what's depression do? It saps your energy. It saps your motivation. So then when you go into work, you're not really performing, right? But that's because your socioeconomic status is so dire that you're under the disease of despair. And so then you're not giving your all when it comes to being at work. Now, I want to share this because I think this is a wonderful video. And this was actually a talk by Professor Anthony Zinkas. And this is how capitalism negatively affects development. Let's get into this.
They compared the brains of rich kids with the brains of poor kids. In 2008, the National Institutes of Health conducted a study where they compared the brains of rich kids with the brains of poor kids. And what they found was astounding. The brains of poor kids had been damaged to the extent that they resembled that of adult stroke victims. And the part of their brains that were impacted the most was the prefrontal cortex. And that's responsible for advanced thinking, judgment, and impulse control. And it's involved in the storage and the retrieval of memories. So science was showing us that the link between low socioeconomic status and poor academic achievement had absolutely nothing to do with a lack of motivation in these kids. It had to do with the fact that their brains have been profoundly impacted by poverty and inequality. We've been told for the longest time that societies based on competition, individualism, and inequality are the typical capitalist economies, that these are the best societies to get people to reach their fullest potential. In fact, the more competition and inequality a society has, we've been told that's what gives the incentive for people to bring themselves up from the bottom and pull themselves up by their bootstraps to make it to the middle class or beyond. But that's just not so. In fact, more equal societies do far better on a whole range of issues, including academic achievement, but they also have less violent crime, less family violence. And these societies, people have a longer life expectancy and they live healthier and happier lives. If you're not aware.
So, just to highlight a couple things, it literally affects the brain. And if it's literally affecting the brain, especially in those of us that are young, then by the time we reach the age of adulthood, we're already behind because of a socioeconomic status. And the socioeconomic status is not the fault of the individual. It is the fault of a system. And it's just like the old saying goes, if a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which the flower grows, not the flower itself. Therefore, the environment in which we're growing is incongruent with our nature as humans. That being said, then this system, this capitalist system, is incongruent with humanity, is incongruent with nature. So therefore, it is not conducive for us to keep this system around. And yet we say, well, this is the best system that we got. Meanwhile, whenever you get a country that goes into a socialist system, what is one of the first things that go up? Literacy. Homeless rates drop. People's life expectancy goes up. But we don't want that for our people because they have to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Let's continue.
Lives. If you're not aware of the number of children in the United States that are poor, or what the federal poverty level is for that matter, you're not alone. Most Americans don't know that 1 in 5 children in this country are growing up in poverty, and that the federal poverty level is $24,000 for a family of 4. I live on Long Island. You can't survive as a family of 2 for $24,000 a year, let alone 4 people.
You can't survive on $24,000 a year with a family of 1. You can't even. That's how bad it is. And this was a few years ago. So imagine how many people are dealing with this diseases of despair, and it's affecting them mentally. And then these people interact with us every day. So then they can negatively affect us too. And it can become a domino effect. The thing about being on the left is that you realize you're part of a global whole. And it has a ripple effect. I could be on one end of a lake, and if somebody drops a pebble in the middle of that lake, I may not feel the ripples from it just yet, but they eventually come. And so therefore, this is why it behooves us to think in a more collective action, because we all live on this rock together. And if you have more happy people on this rock, that means it's going to influence more happy people. We have more people in despair on this rock, it's going to influence more despair. We have to think of ourselves as a collective instead of the individual, because it means our very survival. We are a communal species, and we cannot change that. A leopard cannot change his spots any more than we can change ourselves from being a communal species. Let's do just a little bit more.
And experts have said that the poverty level itself is half what it should be. It should be twice that in order for families to have what they need to get their basic necessities met. And if we do set the level of poverty more accurately, more than 2 in 5 kids in the United States would be considered poor. As it stands now, more than half the kids who graduate high school have been on food stamps at some point in their lives. And poverty is a leading cause of death in the United States. More people die because of poverty and inequality than because of heart disease or strokes or even drug overdoses. So it's the inequality that is actually creating a state of chronic stress that is damaging the developing bodies and brains of these kids. And it's not just what's happening in the home. When we look at what's happening in the neighborhoods, they're places of high risk as well. Being born low socioeconomic status raises the risk for a whole bunch of things. There was a study done in 2011, and it showed that for every 1% rise in home foreclosures, there was a corresponding 3 to 5% increase in the amount of hospital admissions for severe physical abuse of children, including head trauma. And some of those kids died. So what it showed was that growing up in poor households actually increased your risk for child abuse and neglect. Now, it's not that those parents don't love their children, they absolutely do, but the level of stress that parents of low socioeconomic status are under on a daily basis makes parenting to their best potential very, very difficult. And the Centers for Disease Control showed very clearly in their Adverse Childhood Experiences study that the more abuse and neglect a child had growing up, the more risk they would have of having poorer health outcomes throughout their lives. More like.
So, a parent that's constantly working can't really tend to their kids. And if you're living paycheck to paycheck or below paycheck to paycheck, and if you're working all these hours just to try to keep your head above water, your kids are left to their own devices, or they're left with older siblings. And then the parent comes home and they're super tired, they're stressed, they're exasperated, they're depressed, they're angry because they're not actually getting a dignified, they don't have a dignified work experience. They're not being paid a living wage. So therefore, sometimes we take out our anger on our loved ones. And sometimes this could be little kids. And for some parents, the quick fix may be go and get a switch. Or let me get my belt. Or for some of you Latinos, get that chancleta. It's just, you know what I'm saying? And then more abuse happens. Or then we start to self-medicate. We start to drink more, right? How many people, when they drink, they become very violent and volatile? And then that can also be a fuel for abuse. And then the kids end up seeing that or being, victims of it because of the socioeconomic status. I'm not saying it's all, but it's a huge contributor. Let's just finish this part.
Likely it would be that their neurological development would be impacted. They're more likely to have anxiety, depression, mental illness, and addiction throughout their lives. But even their physical bodies are affected by the stress to the point where they're more likely to have heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. See, the story of risk, whether it's from low socioeconomic status or the corresponding risk of child maltreatment in those homes, is the story of chronic stress. Our stress levels are meant to go up and come down quickly so that we can get away from a threat. But kids who are growing up low socioeconomic status, they're in a state of survival mode all the time. And it's not just their homes. They grow up in neighborhoods that have risk. I live in Huntington, Long Island, and like many towns across the United States, Huntington is a tale of two cities. There is a middle class and upper class area, mostly white, and then there are pockets of poverty where low socioeconomic status families live, often black and brown, and some immigrants. So what we have is this tale of two cities. A colleague of mine works for a youth center, and she asked the kids to describe their neighborhoods and to do it by using words that describe their sights and sounds. The kids in the middle class neighborhoods described seeing lush green lawns and looking at beautiful homes, hearing the ice cream truck as it rolled down the street in the summer, which they thought was a very exciting thing, but I find infuriating at 9 in the morning on a Saturday. But the kids in the poor neighborhoods, they talked about seeing people pushing their belongings in shopping carts, boarded up houses, police all the time in their neighborhood. And when the police go to those neighborhoods, usually it's not for a good reason. And the sounds they heard were gunshots. A few years ago in Huntington Station, they had to close the intermediate school because of a drive-by shooting. So you can imagine the kids growing up with the risk of income inequality in their homes. When they leave the door to go to school, that risk doesn't stop. It's amazing that they achieve it all. And they do. But we're creating a world for them where people are seeing themselves down here and others up here. There was a famous study done in India where they took boys from the highest caste and the lowest caste, and they brought them together in a room. They didn't know which caste each other was from, and they had them complete these puzzles, these little mazes. And when they finished the first round of tests, their scores were identical. And then they each stood up and they said what town they were from, and they said what caste they were in. And they took the tests again, and the boys from the highest caste did better, and the boys from the lowest caste, their grades sunk. So it's not just growing up in poverty that creates stress. It's feeling like you're down here when others are up here. And right now in the United States, we've got the widest gap between the rich and the poor than we've ever had since the Great Depression. And when I think about how we've made people to feel like the other, I can't have this conversation without talking about racism too. Now, I'm having that conversation as a person of privilege, born white, male, and middle class. And I didn't ask for that privilege, but I've been given it much of my life without even knowing that I had it. And when we look at race, racism also does raise the risk for poverty, because a black or brown child in the United States born today is twice as likely to grow up poor. But it's not just income inequality which causes the chronic stress of racism, because even middle class and upper class black and brown people have higher risk of poorer health outcomes. And that's because of the risk of the chronic stress associated with racism. It's because
So that goes into what I was talking about earlier. But I just want to thank you guys for listening to that. And what I'm going to do is I will. Where is it? I'm going to put the link for that video in the chat so you guys can finish it. Professor Zinkus was giving that lecture like Brent was doing. That's how good it was. But that's the point, right? A lot of times we talk about capitalism and how it has just this disparity among us, but we never talk about the mental health aspects of it as well, which I think is a worthy conversation to have. And then I want to end with this. Do I want to end with this? Hang on. Yeah, I want to end with this. Hang on, let me make sure it makes sense. Okay. And I would like to find more people who are mental health professionals that also talk about, who are anti-capitalist, that help people and counsel people and do therapy. I would love to see more of them, because in talking about capitalism, it's like they're constantly, and not talking about capitalism, you have a lot of therapists and counselors that are trying to tell you that this is just a system and how it is, and you have to deal with it. And you have to find, you have to be happy with the system in a way. I don't agree, because we should be trying to alleviate ourselves from a system that is so debilitating. But let me go here. And
I wish more therapists would talk about capitalism with their clients. As therapists, we are formally trained to take an apolitical stance, right? We're not really trained to talk about politics unless we're just simply holding space and just listening and being with. And in my opinion, by us not speaking about how capitalism plays a role into our mental health, we are actually harming more individuals. A lot of therapists will say, well, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do about talking about capitalism? We need to focus on things that are within our locus of control. And I think you can do both. You can talk about things within your control and also knowing about the actual impacts of how capitalism disproportionately impacts individuals of lower working class statuses. And here's the thing, more people are going to therapy. That is beautiful. And we also know that anxiety and depression isn't going down either. And the anxiety and depression a lot of individuals experience exasperates by what it is to live underneath the capitalistic culture. As we know, capitalism also plays a role into people's feelings of low self-worth, feeling that they have to compete, this hyper individualism, this competition with others, which promotes this competition within the self. I just don't understand how a therapist can effectively address that without even naming one of the biggest factors of that play a role, which is not only our parents, but also capitalism as well.
And also, just as an aside, how many of us men are taught that our value is we only have value in what we produce and what we do for others. We don't have inherent value. We're not taught that within this system. And so this can also contribute to a lot of frustrations among us too. And so I think, she has some very beautiful points there. But yeah. Social emotional learning with Dr. Donnie says, my therapist and I talk about racism and capitalism all the time. That's beautiful. And, I would like to see more people being able to do that. But for now, we try to deal with it as much as we can. Mental health services can also be a mutual aid thing. So if you are somebody who is a counselor or therapist, could you donate your time in order to be able to help people to be able to navigate this system in a healthy way? Also, another thing, most people these days that get their sense of community are the ones that actually go to church, because we don't have third spaces within our lives. The first space is your home. The second space is your job. The third space is places where people can come and gather and hang out and mingle among each other. We don't have those. So therefore, to be able to build community is not there. That's also a mental health issue because we're isolated away from each other. And that's the way the system is designed. It's designed to isolate and to individualize, so then you feel like you're alone, because they basically put you in an invisible cubicle so that you stay working for those people at the top. I say knock those cubicle walls down and let's start communicating with our friends and family. One of the things I love is that mutual aid organizations are now doing mutual aid action, but also creating a third space for people to just sit down, chill out, put some cards, play some spades, play some dominoes, right? Play some Uno, chill out, talk smack if you need to, laugh, joke, stuff like that, right? But we need to have those third spaces, but those don't exist anymore because the system wants to profit off of third spaces now. And so that's also another part of mental health that we also need to focus on. And the decolonization of our minds also contributes more positively to our mental health because we see ourselves more unified with the world. We see the people who are different from us as our brethren. That's the beautiful part, is that you see yourself in somebody that may be from Guatemala or El Salvador, or you may see somebody that's trans, but you see, wait, this person has a bit of a hot head like me, or they're a foodie like me. And then you start to see yourself in different people. This person may be very religious, and you may be an atheist. But you see how they have such a thirst for justice for everybody just as much as you do. And you can jive with that because they don't use their religion to beat people in the head, but they use it as a tool for helping people liberate themselves. And you may be an atheist, and you may go, you know what? I may not be a believer in God, but that person, I can chill with that. So this is part of it, is being able to see ourselves within each other and see the humanity. We got to become mirrors for each other. But this is something I want to see for all of us, because I think that our mental health, we have to focus on that, because we have to have joy, and you cannot be revolutionary without joy. It's impossible. And also, get into some art. Dance, damn it. Paint. Sculpt if you can. Draw. Get a coloring book. Something. Get that outlet. Put them earphones on. Put on that music. Not the sad songs. Put on something that you can groove to. You know what I'm saying? Put you in that mood. When you look at your friend, when the music's so good, you got a stank face. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. Dance with your friends. Dance with your comrades. Hug each other. Within the means of consent. Give each other hugs. If you can. Let them know. Okay? And kind words. Kind words are also deeply helpful, because you never know. You could be pulling somebody from the brink with just a smile. And I hope you have a wonderful day. It's nice to meet you. And mean it. Be earnest. And we men, let's be the safe spaces for the marginalized people and the vulnerable. Let's be those safe spaces for them, so that they're free to let their hair down and be themselves. If you want to be a protector, fine. Be a protector. I'm getting off my soapbox now. But yes, let's focus on mental health and helping our fellow workers to do better, so that we can collectively be better. All right, thank you so very much for that. I'm going to go into the comments, I think, and then we'll head on out, because I know I went way over time. But Roger says DM since no Rothman. Okay. And then we will head on out. But I want to talk about mental health because I think it's absolutely important, right? Okay. It's kind of short, so it's not going to be too bad. Thank you very much for this, Roger. He says, that's why the New York Health Act, MyCare, Massachusetts Medicare for All, CalCare is not enough. We need to be able to control the medical institutions in our community where it's not just Black, but freedmen Black. I would love to be able to establish an exchange program with Cuba where we send those from our community to Cuba to learn medicine and then come back and work with our freedmen in medical institutions. Now, I got confused once when he said this. And it's just like, okay, there's a religious hospital institution here in Florida called Advent Health. And they're basically owned by Adventists, particularly, you have Seventh-day Adventists and things like that. And so it's a, religious hospital. But it is basically owned and operated by a religious institution. You have Jewish hospitals. You have Catholic hospitals. You have many different types of hospitals, right? So it wouldn't be outside the realm of possibility to have a freedmen hospital, right? Meaning that it is owned and operated by freedmen, Black Americans that are descendants of slavery, but it is open to the public for everybody to use as, but in the ownership of the hospital, it wouldn't be necessarily like a top down. It would be more co-op. And I think that's what Roger's getting at. So you have different types of hospitals. You have the Catholic hospitals, things like that. Yeah, you'll have I think is Mount Sinai Hospital, is that a Christian hospital or is that a Jewish hospital? I don't know, but that's basically what Roger's getting at. So I was confused about that, and I feel the need to make a self-correction about that, but thanks for that, Roger. I appreciate it. Savita says even kids and then adults with ADD take drugs because that's all they had access to, which makes them feel better. Yeah. A lot of people, it gives them focus sometimes, Tim says, I can't believe the balloon is still floating. Oh yeah, I'm gonna wear this balloon down. This thing's gonna be floating on the floor by the time I'm done with it. Let me see. Sean Miller says, old white men had lodgers. We need similar. I mean, we need like a lot of these different things, right? You got those links, Jay. Okay, so let me, you're talking about the Black African American mental health. I will put that in the link in the chat for you. And then, I'm sorry, I forgot. Then the NIH link, put that in the chat for you. All right. Was I missing something? And this is why I need a producer. Yeah. So if that's what you're talking about, then it's pretty. And I'll give you the link to. Oh no. Oh no. What? No. Don't start yelling at me. She's talking about getting that check. She better not miss that check. And then I'll send you the TikTok video of the young lady talking about mental health and capitalism. All right, so let's continue. Edward says, it is so true. I live in a community where people are so reserved that they will say hi, but not stop to talk to you. Despite the people being nice, they don't want to spend time with you. It was yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yes, it was yesterday. Now, once in a while, because I'm exhausted, I had to order food because I'm too tired to cook after dialysis. And so I had to walk down to the gate to get the food. And then walking, I saw a gentleman, going into his apartment. So as I'm walking back, I see him come back out. I guess he's going to take out the trash. And he says, what's up? And I say, what's up back? And I said, hey, I'm one of your neighbors. My name is James. And then he came over and gave me a handshake. He's like, my name is Josh. He was like, and then we started a conversation. How long have you been here? Well, I've been here only for this long. How long you been here? I've been here since this place, they built this place. Oh, how has it been? It's been its ups, its downs, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, we just chatted on the way to the dumpster, right? By the time we got close to the dumpster, I was close to where I lived, and I went my own merry little way. But in seeing him, I will remember him, and then we'll probably have another chat. But that's a part of building community too. And the thing is that can also be positive for our mental health, So that's just a little anecdotal example. Oh snap, Sabby on, and oh, I gotta go because I like to watch Sabby when I edit. Anywho, so with that being said, I'm gonna head on out. I gotta really start making these segments smaller. But I am just glad that I was able to talk about these issues. If you guys would like to, you guys can always, message me with or send me an email. That's in my description of my videos. If you guys want to submit a story that you guys think is interesting. Oh, and this also I had to start. It says only because the welfare of Social Security that their constituents been getting without qualification as opposed to those who really need it. The problem is that the people who really need it, if they're 62, they can still get it if between 62 and up, right? The problem is that a lot of times Social Security disability and Social Security will actually deny people their disability benefits, even though they are legitimately disabled. And the doctors will actually say, yeah, this person's disabled. They actually need those funds because they can barely work or not work at all. And so then they deny because they're going to be very tight-fisted with that money, even though that person may have paid into the system. And so the thing is, it's like these are entitlements because they are entitlements. And the thing is, if you pay into it, that means you're entitled to get the money back. And plus, it's public money, right? I don't want my Social Security money going to the Department of Defense to help bomb brown kids abroad. No. That money needs to stay here and it needs to come back into our pockets so that we can be able to live and actually live a life of dignity. But I digress. But yes, thank you very much for that. I, of course, am going to head on out because I got to get going. I got a lot of people watching on Twitter today. I'm gonna have to start getting y'all watching me on YouTube because y'all watching me on Twitter and I'm just like, move on over. Anyway, so thank you very much to everybody for tuning in. I appreciate all of you, and I will have clips coming out the next couple of days from these segments from this live stream as always. So water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them. Drink your tea and love people and be kind to yourself and other people, and compassion will save the world. I love you guys for watching. Mwah, forehead kisses, because that's the kind of guy I am. And y'all have yourself a merry little day. And free Mahmoud Khalil. Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/JBFaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.